with pink hair, Ercia Paisentria is declared the child of the prophecy, and with this, she is destined to marry the heir to the empire. The Crown Princess Ercia and the Crown Prince have known each other for 18 years. However, when the oracle changes, Ercia's world comes crashing around her. Just when she thinks that no oracle can make him abandon her, the prince asks to cancel their wedding. Hearing this devastates Ercia. Well, she did just get broken up with. Maybe she could still save their relationship if they reminisce about their past. She loves the prince, and she's his fiancée. Surely he loves her too, right? However, he seems adamant about casting her away. Boo! What a red flag of a man! In a last attempt to preserve her remaining pride, Ercia calmly agrees with his decision. The following day, she wakes up and feels the effect of being cast away. No maids of honor dare to serve an abandoned princess. Suddenly, a commotion arises. Lady Navia Rotella barges into Ercia's room. Nevaeh is the subject of the new prophecy, the destined recipient of the prince's love. Knowing that she's the destined one, she rudely enters Ercia's room, claiming that she has the right to enter. What an audacious woman! Enraged at her behavior, Ercia asserts her role as the current crown princess. After all, she's still the crown prince's fiancé, which means that as of now, she still holds a more powerful position. She takes this opportunity to spite Navia, implying that perhaps she thinks just because she's the object of the prophecy, she thinks she's more powerful than the emperor. Hearing this, Navia panics. If anyone is to hear these allegations, she'd be in trouble for sure. She has the lady dragged out of her room. When Ercia is once more alone, she seethes with anger at how the prince could replace her for someone that immature. With vicious eyes, she questions how she can make her fiancé pay a high price for just casting her away. You better make him pay for just abandoning you like that. You deserve better. Rumors about Ercia quickly spread throughout the palace. She isn't the woman in the prophecy, which is why people start rumors of her being abandoned by God himself. As she hears these rumors, she threatens the women who dare to speak behind her back. Yes, Queen, put them in their place. She's still the crown princess after all, so anything said against her could still be considered treasonous. The women profusely apologize, not daring to repeat what they said in front of Ercia. However, things come to a halt when Ercia's previous maid of honor enters. With disgust on her face, she stares at Ercia. Even her own maid of honor, who had taken care of her since she was a child, was now abandoning her. In the evening, Ercia joins her fiancé for dinner. It is only during dinner that she's able to meet him, but it seems that their relationship is now strained as he shows indifference to her as they dined. Years of love thrown away just like that? What a shameless guy! As they go along, she shares that the position he had always wanted for so long has now been taken. Hearing this, he tries to act as if he doesn't care. Seeing him act so nonchalantly, Ercia reveals what she truly plans to bring up during their dinner. In a sharp tone, she asks when she'll finally be able to leave the palace. To say he is shocked and offended is an understatement. He truly finds it so absurd that Ercia actually wants to leave so soon. Well, duh! You don't want her anymore, but you still expect her to stay? What do you expect? Back in her room, she stumbles across the old plans she wrote for her fiancé's future reign. She had planned to give it to him once he finally became emperor. Reading its contents, she feels foolish for writing to him and believing him when he said they'd be partners for life. Suddenly, a bird flies onto her balcony. Upon closer inspection, she realizes that it is a messenger bird carrying a letter from her father. As soon as she reads through it, she immediately summons Asha, a faithful servant of their family who was planted at the imperial palace. Why do you think she would summon him? When Asha enters, the first thing he does is declare his allegiance to the princess. He expresses that he has been waiting a long time for Her Highness of Paisentria to summon him. Ercia regards him, and she immediately asks him to spread a rumor about Lady Rotella. It turns out the Marquis, despite his status, has no wealth to his name. This is because 3 generations ago, the Marquis used to hurt the weak. As a result, no fortune has come their way ever since. Would it be wrong to say deserved? Ercia plans to use the information to her advantage, and Asha agrees without hesitation. As Asha leaves, she stares into the flames of lit candles, vowing to make Navia pay for crossing her. Meanwhile, far away from the palace, a priest informs a white-haired man about the rumors rising about the crown princess. He disregards them, claiming that Ercia must only be his. I wonder what he means by that. When the priest also informs him of a rumor about Lady Rotella, the man laughs aloud. For some reason, he guesses that the rumor must have been one of Ercia's tactics. Amused, he expresses that he will push through with meeting the Princess Ercia. I hope we see more of him soon. Back in the palace, Ercia prepares herself to return to her home. As she's decluttering, she summons a maid, Azel Portaba, to return her engagement ring back to the prince. To her dismay, Azel comes back quickly, saying that the prince implored the princess to return it to him herself. Azel also expresses her concerns about the rumors surrounding Lady Rotella. What would become of the palace if a woman like that were to become the new princess? Hearing this, Ercia concludes that Azel might be useful to her one day. Heeding the prince's words, she comes to his quarters to return the ring. When she enters, she finds an array of flowers, the same one she had decorated for him before. She looks at it with emotion. Why didn't he just throw it away? Why bother keeping it? Her thoughts are interrupted abruptly. The prince has now entered the room, but why was he gazing at her with a rather soft look? Oh, I feel like melting with the way he looks at her. Ercia offers up the box containing the engagement ring with all means of returning it to the prince. When he takes it, she turns to leave, but she accidentally knocks off the vase of flowers from the table. In a rush, the prince comes to her side, concerned that she might injure herself. Realizing that they're physically too close to each other, she tells him that it was inappropriate to hold her, considering they are no longer engaged. The prince agrees, but he seems to be dismayed at the happening. Before Ercia can go, he asks for her to help him arrange the documents. I wonder what's wrong with him tonight. He looks like he wants to be in her company. Ercia declines, and the prince is left with no choice but to let her go. Back in her room, she summons Azel to bandage her foot. Turns out, she had been injured by the vase earlier. As Azel patches her wound, the two strike a conversation. Initially, they begin to talk about the rumors about Lady Rotella. Azel seems to be concerned that the lady would be sitting on the throne, considering her family's background is so bloody. Ercia indulges in the conversation. Soon enough, she shifts to the topic to Azel's own history. She feigns interest in her familial ties with Mr. Rubella, the prince's assistant. Later that night, a black messenger bird knocks on Ercia's balcony doors. She inspects the letter and sees that it is empty. Moving to burn the letter, she finds that text starts to appear as soon as it is exposed to the flames. She wonders what could have caused her parents to employ such methods to hide their message. Now invested in this odd letter, her eyes glitter with curiosity and determination to unveil its hidden message. Lady Navia Rotella clears herself of the rumors by using the prophecy as a way to appear pure and innocent. She claims that the rumors are baseless and that the people should believe in her since she's the owner of the oracle. That night, Ercia once again summons Asha. They recount the earlier events of Lady Rotella, clearing her name and speaking as if she were already the princess of the empire. LOL, she's not even the princess, but yet she acts like she has power already. Wanting to find out more about the Rotella family, she wonders if it would be possible to delay her return to her home. She might even ask her father for some help. The next day, the butler informs her that a landslide occurred, blocking the road from the capital towards her home. Hearing this, she becomes amused at her father's capabilities. Could he really have pulled that off? With her departure postponed, Ercia sets her plan into motion. Earlier that day, she had broken the door handles in her room, thus allowing people to freely hear the conversations upon passing by. Her tactics might be subtle, but they are really smart. She begins to talk about Lady Rotella's unethical habits. How could someone like her lead the empire? Someone who spends the temple's funds excessively, someone who has never held a pen, and someone who ruined her own financial status trying to buy luxuries. Hearing this, the butler concludes that her behavior is truly not suitable for a crown princess. With a genuine gesture, he pledges his allegiance to Ercia and the welfare of the empire. With the rumor she spread, Ercia wonders how Lady Rotella would ever get out of it. The following morning, Ercia plots a way for the temple to withdraw its support for Rotella. But her thoughts are sidetracked when she realizes that the High Priest could play a great role in foiling her plans. With a devious look, she shows her curiosity about getting to know the High Priest. As they say, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. The white-haired man halts his sword practice when a priest informs him that the princess would like to meet him. Who is this guy and why is he so handsome? Hearing this, he remarks that it is earlier than their original meeting date, but still, he would push through with meeting her. Meanwhile, Ercia hangs out with Azel at the palace greenhouse. As the two are together, Ercia tries to pry information from Azel's personal life, particularly things that her brother may have mentioned. She fakes showing concern for Azel's family situation, expressing that it must be tough for her brother considering he's an assistant to the prince. Touched by the princess's concern, Azel takes the bait and divulges information. Oh, but I kind of pity Azel a bit for having her emotions toyed with. According to her, her brother indeed has been going through a tough time ever since the proclamation of the new oracle. Furthermore, she mentions that it's even more problematic to handle the situation since both the temple and the empire are involved. Erisia continues to flatter and treat Azelle nicely. As a result, Azelle tries her best to aid the princess in any matters she may need help with. Not too long after Azelle leaves, the Crown Prince and Lady Rotella enter the greenhouse side by side. Audacious as ever, she questions why Erisia is in the greenhouse to begin with. Fed up with the disrespect, Erisia asks permission from the prince to allow her to tell off Lady Rotella. When he fails to speak, she takes this as permission to do so. Has the cat got your tongue, Crown Prince? Unlike Lady Rotella, who is being handed everything because of the prophecy, all of Ersia's power and influence are the fruit of her and her family's hard work. She would not stand to be disrespected so easily. But when she tries to put Lady Rotella in her place, the woman seems to allow her ego to get the best of her and disrespects Ersia more, even telling her she'd regret her actions. The nerve of her! Why is it that the Crown Prince remains silent when both women feud in front of him? Lady Rotella ceases her disrespect and invites the prince to move along with her outside. However, unexpectedly, the prince tells her to go first. Ha! In your face! When he repeats it a second time, Rotella looks pained and betrayed. Ersia and the prince sit opposite each other at the greenhouse table. Getting straight to the point, he tells Ersia to cease whatever she's doing. Although he doesn't mention it explicitly, she knows that he is pertaining to matters relating to Lady Rotella. When Ersia doesn't budge, he asserts himself more, telling her that he is warning and not requesting. Geez, not polite at all. Reaching an endpoint to their discussion, Ersia tells him that he should know better. No member of the Payson-Tria family dares to let people who interfere with their family live in peace. One way or another, they will get even. Ersia is merely following her family's rules. As she leaves, she tells him not to call her by name anymore. After all, they are no longer engaged. He should start addressing her according to her title, the Princess of Payson-Tria. As he should. Even when Ersia exits the greenhouse, she notices a presence following her around. Realizing that the mystery person has no interest in stopping, she leads herself into a clearing so that they may confront each other. As she turns around, she calls out Lady Rotella for tailing behind her. When she reveals herself, she confronts Ersia right away. She's heard the rumors about herself, and they seem to spread like wildfire. With a condescending tone, she interjects that she knows for a fact that it's none other than Ersia who's behind all of it. A princess must always remain composed no matter what the situation. As Lady Rotella continues rambling about Ersia starting the rumors, Ersia replies nonchalantly, saying that spreading rumors is not a sensible thing for a princess like her. Ersia shows Rotella a potion that she carries in hand. She pours drops of the liquid onto the ground, and immediately the grass starts to sizzle and burn from the chemical. Had she not known beforehand that it was Rotella who was following, she would have used it on the stalker right away. I'd pour that all over Rotella anytime. With a haughty tone, she advises her to send a formal letter next time she wants to convene. Rotella realizes the severity of the damage the chemical could have brought her. To retaliate, she flaunts the ring on her hand and arrogantly shows it off. Ersia merely laughs at her. How could she flaunt something Ersia used to own? It was almost like a hand-me-down at this point. Their exchange of words remains as sharp as ever. As soon as Rotella leaves, Asha immediately appears from hiding. He hands her a sealed letter. In its contents are the status of the war. It turns out the war is over and the Imperial force would be returning soon. 3 years ago, the Sepaya Kingdom had sent a plea to the Empire saying that they would volunteer to become vassals if the Empire would send an army. Her brother, Rias Payson-Tria, was among those who attended the reinforcement. Her brother looks so manly and charming. With the war over, her brother would be returning in a week's time. But aside from her brother, then that means that Kid would also be coming back. I wonder what kid she means. The next morning, Ersia wakes to the sight of flowers adorning her bedside. She wonders where the flowers come from and how they ended up there. Her questions are soon answered when Alfredo Venetia, the second prince of the empire and the bastard son of the emperor, walks in carrying yet another bouquet of flowers. It's been a long time since they've seen each other. Alfredo expresses how much he worried for Ersia when he heard the new prophecy. Seeing him worry, all she can do is reassure him that she's all right. Considering that it's been 3 years since their last meeting, then that would make Alfredo 16 years old. Hardly a kid anymore. All of a sudden, as they're catching up, he hastily pulls Ersia into a hug. This puts Ersia in a state of shock. With the softest gaze, he asks her face to face if she truly did remember him. Yeah, he's so cute! He looks just like the Crown Prince, but with softer features. Alfredo's question catches Ersia off guard. Suddenly, she finds herself strolling down memory lane to the time they first met. She had been in the garden when a young Alfredo tugs her momentarily. Oh, he's so cute as a child! Feeling the slight tug on her dress, she turned her attention to him. It was then that he asked if she was busy. Seeing him with an almost crying expression, Ercia listened to what he had to share and vent out. How could a child be so pitiful? From that moment on, Alfredo had followed her around, and in turn, she acted like an older sister to him. Now, 3 years later, she is proud of the person Alfredo has become. To think he survived and triumphed in a war he was forced to take part in? That's an admirable feat indeed. He asks her if she truly did call off her engagement with his brother, to which she answers yes to. What else is there for her to say? That's the reality of her situation anyway. Alfredo invites Ercia to dine together for breakfast, but she soon realizes that he hasn't even greeted the emperor, queen, and his own brother the prince yet. She implores him to meet with his family first, and she can join him for a meal at a later time. Hearing this, a sad expression takes over Alfredo's face. He acknowledges what Ercia meant. Although he looks pained not to be able to spend breakfast with Ercia, he still heeds her advice. As Alfredo leaves, Ercia looks past her window to see preparations commence for the night's welcoming party. An idea pops in her head. How amusing would it be to see the Crown Prince and Lady Rutella's reactions if she attends the welcoming party? Oh, she is cunning indeed. Later on, she asks Azelle to help her prepare for the party, to which Azelle happily obliges. But mid-thought, Ercia quickly revokes her request and shows a worried and hurt expression. Seeing her lady's pained expression, Azelle is concerned that something has happened. Once again, Ercia has wrapped Azelle around her finger. She then explains a matter involving Lady Rutella, saying that the lady had trampled on her a few days ago. Hearing this, Azelle feels pity for her. How cruel is Lady Rutella to hurt her princess? Seeing that her plan successfully baits Azelle, Ercia remembers her encounter with Asha a few nights ago. He has come into her room bringing important intel about the Rutella family. It turns out the Marquise of the Rutella family had borrowed large sums of money from the trade fair. The son who handled the trade fair used to be in love with Lady Rutella. Ugh! Who could love someone with such an ugly personality? But more importantly, he hid a dark secret. Turns out the son had killed his mother and had hidden his father away. Nobody but the Marquise knew about it, which is why he used this as leverage against the son of the trade fair. Either he would lend the Marquise money or be executed for his crimes. As if that wasn't juicy enough, Asha then reveals more. The Marquise seemed to be related to the shrine. However, his exchanges and transactions with the shrine were way before the prophecy was changed. Asha goes on to say that it was the higher priest's wish to inform everyone that it was the original prophecy. He suspects that the high priest is having an affair with the Marquise's daughter. No wonder the prophecy has been changed. Looking out the window, Ercia knows that this is vital news since the high priest is barred from having passionate relationships, and ponders what she can do with such information. Ercia asks Asha if he has any information about Lady Rutella's biggest weakness. He replies that Lady Rutella's biggest weakness is beauty, such as luxury items or beautiful-looking servants. At this moment, she asks if he can try to seduce Lady Rutella for her. Loyal as ever, he agrees to do what she commands. Meanwhile, Ercia recounts some intimate details about Asha's life, stating that he grew up in a guild full of assassins, but he somehow ended up abandoned on the side of the road. That's when her father came to pick him up and take him under his wing. Once Asha was fully healed, he swore his loyalty to the family and would do anything for them. The story then jumps into another flashback of when Ercia was still a young girl. She returns to her room at night to read a book. Out of curiosity, she goes to check on the room that still has a light and sees Asha wielding a blade and calmly wiping away part of the blood spattered on his face. A hand stretches out and grabs her leg, asking her to save him. Asha stomps the hand away and tells Ercia to return to her room. Despite being taken aback and trembling by the scene, she continues to nag Asha for an explanation. Ercia was taken aback when her brother came on the scene, who was also covered with blood, and eventually asked him for an explanation. Despite Ercia's protests, her brother picked her up and walked her back to her room. As he tucks her into bed, he asks about her purpose for being there. She tells him to explain the matter to her first, but he avoids the subject, merely patting her head and telling her what she witnessed was unimportant to her. With this memory, she recalls how her brother's appearance did not startle the servants. When he was gone, she realized that she was the only one who was living in ignorance. As she gets older, she discovers that her brother and Asha were slaying assassins who were planning to kill her that night, and recalls how many people were harmed as a consequence of her title as a child. She exclaims how strange it is that she is remembering the first assassination attempt on her life at the same time that she's experiencing another incident. At that moment, a group of assassins block her path, ready to assault her. She asks whether they are sent by Lady Rutella, telling them that she has been aware of their presence the entire time. She then adds that it's time to deal with the matter. and that's when Asha arrives out of nowhere to defend her and protect her from the assassins. Ersia orders him to deal with them quickly, and he tells her to close her eyes as he eliminates them for her. He's literally a knight in shining armor! Ersia, on the other hand, does not close her eyes, instead observing Asha's fight against the assassins. When someone tries to attack him, she even warns him, and he eventually succeeds in dealing with them. He kneels before her and apologizes for causing her to witness such a scene, to which she says that he doesn't need to be sorry, handing him her handkerchief to clean the blood on his face. He initially refuses out of respect for her as a princess, but when she insists gently, he agrees and uses it respectfully. When they hear a groan of pain from behind them, they realize that one of the assassins is still alive. He steps on his hand to silence him. Asha then asks if they should return him to the Duke's palace and use him as evidence that Rotella attempted to assassinate her. Instead, she tells him to keep the attempt hidden because she already knows Rotella was behind it and advises handing it to her father because they will need it someday. That night, the messenger bird returns with a new letter, and Ersia feels terrible for it for having to fly so far. As she reads the letter describing how tough it is to find the person behind the assassins, Alfredo comes by. With his pleasant appearance, Alfredo says he came to give her something and takes out a stunning white gown. She recognizes it straight away. She admits that it was supposed to be her bridal gown as crown princess, and she wonders why he would bring such a thing to her. He then explains that a marquise's daughter wanted to steal it. At this time, she knowingly answers that it is Lady Rotella and asks Alfredo where he found it. He says that it was purely a coincidence that while he was roaming around to find a gift for her, he noticed a woman with pink hair and followed her to the bar out of curiosity. Ersia stares at him, invested in what he's saying, and asks him to continue. He reveals that he heard Lady Rotella say her name while looking at the gown. He had to keep his rage in check at that time, but he managed to steal the dress and walked away. She admits that the dress is no longer useful and tells him that there is nothing more outstanding than white. As she says that, she reminisces another memory with the Crown Prince. Ersia and the Crown Prince gazed in astonishment at the bridal gown, as he informed her how anything coated in pure white instantly became the most beautiful and remarkable thing in his eyes. As he stated how it was the perfect dress, he patted Ersia gently on her head and told her that it will suit her well. Back in the present, Ersia wears a solemn expression and admits to Alfredo that the wedding gown feels more like a reward to her. A reward for spending her entire life training to become the perfect crown princess. But she no longer needs it now that she is a lady of peasantry, and no longer a backup crown princess. Ersia tells Alfredo to return the gown to Lady Rotella. He approaches her and asks why she has such a sad expression. Ersia questions the meaning of his assertions, and he answers that she has a look that one only gets when they're unhappy. Unaware that she has produced an expression that has impacted Alfredo, she stretches out her hand to soothe him, and he gratefully accepts her affectionate touch. He eventually makes a move and kisses her hand, but she does not react and merely tells him that she is preoccupied with other matters and will call him when she has time. She returns to reading a lot of invitation letters that were given to her after he leaves, as she has many eager admirers and is no longer engaged. She discovers that many nobles are excited to see her at the welcome back feast for the knights. Some speculate that she will not appear because the Crown Prince and Rotella will be attending the ceremony together. Most of them who will attend want to be delighted by the potential drama that may ensue if she does appear. Knowing this, she decides to follow their wishes and conform to their expectations. She plans that the event will not proceed easily or pleasantly. Meanwhile, Azel appears in her room after she was summoned earlier, and she invited Azel to come closer as she revealed her future plans. Azel eagerly displays her support and assures Ersia that Lady Rotella will not be able to hurt her. I love how loyal Azel is. The butler then arrives with more letters from available men, inviting Ersia to be their partner at the occasion. She tells him to throw them away and asks him to mail the letters she composed instead. She further states that if more letters from suitors arrive, he should simply discard them personally, because she has already decided who will be her companion at the party. Later that night, Ersia is finally finished with her preparations, and Rotella should anticipate her at the party because the rumor was merely a child's play. Afterwards, on the day of the party, the servants are busy preparing for the event, and many noble attendees have been on diets to look their best. However, Ersia states that the main character merely needs to prepare imposingly, thus, she doesn't need to do any of that. As you should, Ersia. She makes her way to an isolated spot where she is aware that her plans with Asha are currently in motion. She hides behind the stables and watches Asha kneel before Lady Rotella, begging for her forgiveness. Asha assures Lady Rotella that he had no idea he possessed such a valuable object. She states she's not angry with him and only inquires as to why he has her brooch. Ersia remains hidden behind the cottage in the palace's garden, listening to Lady Rotella's conversations with Asha. Lady Rutella is curious to know how he obtained her brooch. Ersia recalls finding it on the ground after Rutella stormed out of the forest after their little showdown in the glass garden, and decided to make good use of it. Ersia gave it to Asha with the intention of using it against Lady Rutella when he made her fall for him. He then began exhibiting it to the royal servants, causing a tale about a stolen brooch being held by a humble servant to spread, which eventually reached Rutella. Lady Rutella continues to ask Asha, who kneels before her, and with his innocent-looking face, convinces her that he simply found it on the ground somewhere. She quickly falls for the deception and caresses his face gently, instantly believing him and forgiving him since she is weak in the face of beauty. I'm curious if Lady Rutella is aware of the delicate seduction playing out around her. Ersia, on the other hand, witnesses this and happily walks away. Meanwhile, the Prince of Peasantria receives Ersia's letter. Her brother, Rias, has just returned from the war after 3 years of being away. As soon as he reads her letter, despite the ball being a day away, he decides to head to the Imperial Palace and tells the servant to get the horse ready for him. On the morning of the Imperial Ball at the Imperial Church, the Great Pope gets all geared up for his scheduled encounter with Ersia without her awareness. Meanwhile, Ersia is in great spirits as she prepares for the ball. While a maid is putting her shoes on, the butler informs her that the Prince and Princess Rutella are perhaps on their way to the ball and asks when she would want to go. She states that she'll only go when the sun has set and the moon is visible. Later, when her maid asks about the peculiar timing, Ersia confesses that it is the time when her most anticipated guest will arrive. The awaited guest, however, does not come until after the sun is set, causing the servants to believe that the princess will be attending the ball alone. Ersia, on the other hand, is steadfast and confident that he will arrive. Meanwhile, her most awaited guest has arrived. Her brother, as promised, and warmly greets her before pecking her cheek. He then advises her that they should attend the ball. They certainly created a bang when they entered. The charming siblings of the famous Peasantria family, Prince Rias Peasantria and Princess Ersia, arrive at the ball. When they walk through the ball, the noise dies down and all eyes are fixed on them alone, including Lady Rutella. Ersia notices Lady Rutella's resentful eyes. I hope jealousy can kill, because if it does, Rutella would keel over. Ersia is aware that this silence is due to the fact that as a preliminary crown princess, she doesn't usually attend events like this. This is also her brother's first appearance after 3 years in battle. Can I just say that her brother is ridiculously handsome? Their gene pool is not playing around, y'all. She recalls her brother's childhood, who has since then been known for being powerful and for looking like their gorgeous mother. His flawless swordsmanship gained him the Emperor's Sword and appointed him the Crown Prince's companion when he was just 16. But that's not all. Rias's flawless intelligence is also known for assisting their father in ruling their dukedom. All of this on top of his entering the army and becoming their kingdom's bright and ruthless knight. Ersia chuckles as she recounts how miserable noblewomen in their kingdom were when they first learned of his departure to the battlefields, and the numerous letters begging him not to go. Rias, noticing her amusement, asks her what's on her mind, and she confesses that she's been thinking about the old days. Ersia then excuses herself to grab a drink and finds Lady Rutella mingling with several noble women. She bribes a server to bring a special drink to her enemy and lies that it was presented by a man who fell in love with her attractiveness. When Lady Rutella receives the drink, she is moved and wants to show it off to the ladies. She eagerly accepts the glass and gulps it down. Ersia, on the other hand, grins deviously at her reckless action, internally urging her to consume the premium sweet wine as well as the medicine she poured into it. As she returns to her brother's side, he notices Lady Rutella drinking the wine. Rias wonders if Lady Rutella is simply drinking wine. Instead, Ersia reveals that it contained a medicine that their father provided and was sensitive in a variety of ways. Meanwhile, Ersia is approached by a dizzy Rutella, making her worry if her father's medicine is already working. To be sure, she grips the lady's shoulder and admits that she's the one who started the rumor about her. However, unlike her typical self, Rutella does not answer. It leads Ersia to conclude that the treatment was ineffective. Nevertheless, a smirk appears on Lady Rutella's face as she coldly looks down on Ersia, expressing that she intends to make her kneel before herself once she formally becomes the crown princess. Ersia looks at the wasted Lady Rutella and concludes that the medicine is working effectively. She believes that her plans to stand out in the celebration have begun now that Lady Rutella has finally absorbed the medicine. Looking at the person before her, she hates the fact that she's been replaced by such an immature child. Compared to Rutella, Ersia is more ladylike than her indeed. Ersia recounts her ball with the Crown Prince, the first time she held someone's hand and danced. Because the king and queen are usually the first to dance, she and the prince would always follow them. However, she's not thinking about the dance with him, but rather that a spoiled child has cost her the spot she worked so hard to earn. Considering the circumstances, though, she thinks Rotella will be unable to have the first dance with the prince. She pretends not to know any better, asking Rotella to settle down and offering her a handkerchief to dab the sweat off her cheeks. Rotella, on the other hand, takes it very personally and warns her against treating her lowly. As the crowd observes the tension between them, Ersia gives Rotella a kind pat on the shoulder and explains that she was just trying to make her feel better. However, Rotella immediately screams in response to the gesture, telling Ersia to stop putting on the act. Rotella brings her face close to hers and whispers if she knows that person too. Ersia doesn't get it, and although she wants to, she discards the idea, respecting many guests watching them. Ersia asks Rotella to take a seat so she can calm down. However, she roughly slaps her hand away, making her wince. Although Rotella claims that the slap was merely a brush of her hand, the crowd starts to whisper about why the prophecy chose such a vile person. When Rotella hears about it, she chooses to leave for good. Azel then appears and asks her how she can hurt someone as nice as Ersia. Rotella, enraged, yanks her by her clothes and calls her a clingy roach. The insult just fuels Azel's rant about how she is unfit to be a crown princess and that Ersia is the only one who is. Hearing this temporarily silences Rotella before urging her to slap Azel. Looking at the scenario, Ersia steps in, and Rotel's final hit lands on Ersia's face. She begins bleeding from the corner of her mouth, leading the crowd to criticize Rotella's actions even more. Bravo, Azel! You did great in making Rotella realize her true colors! She is nothing but a mess at this point. Ersia, on the other hand, without any sign of pain, still thinks that the medicine is only effective for a short time and needs to tell her father. Meanwhile, everyone at the ball wonders how she could be the child of the prophecy, just as they start believing that it was false and forged. Rotella's eyes widen in horror. Using the opportunity to appear like her opposite, Ersia offers her hand to help Rotella. Despite Rotella's presence beside Ersia, the crowd's murmurs become louder. Ersia tries to wrap her hand around Rotella's arm, but Rotella jerks it away harshly, causing her to trip over a table piled with wine glasses. Ersia is prepared and braces herself for injury as the wine glasses begin to tumble. The crown prince, on the other hand, comes and pulls her towards him, hiding her from the danger. As the glasses shatter and the wine stains Rotella's clothes, Ersia wonders why the crown prince protected her and not his fiancée. We have no idea as well, girl. This guy is beyond confusing. Meanwhile, Rotella wallows in despair, telling herself that she cannot go that low. Ersia appears once more to express her dissatisfaction and offer her assistance. Rotella, dazed, decides to go and smacks her hand away. However, this time when Ersia calls out to her and says that she is acting inappropriately with her, the visitor agrees and begins doubting the truthfulness of the oracle, causing Rotella to tear out her hair, scream, and cry at them to stop talking. With tears in her eyes, she turns to Ersia and frustratedly asks if she wants to be punished. But Ersia merely chuckles proudly and steps up to her, questioning why she should be the one to be punished and if the oracle was indeed changed. The guest's repeated whispering of the accusation leads to Rotella's shocked expression, leading Ersia to feel there is indeed something wrong with the prophecy. Soon after, Rotella is led away by servants in defeat, leaving Ersia wondering why the crown prince isn't assisting her. As they look at one another, Rias appears and pinches Ersia's cheeks, telling her to have her wound treated as soon as the ball is over. Right then, Azel and her brother greet Ersia and wonder if she's fine. Ersia recognizes Azel's brother, Rufella Pertuve, the crown prince's aide. As they exchange greetings, she notes how he's still kind-hearted, which interferes with his work and distinguishes him from the rest of the crown prince's aides. She also compares him to Azel and realizes how similar they are. She then turns to Azel and kisses her cheek, pleading with her not to put herself in danger for her sake, and urges Rufella to take his sister home and cure her wounds. Following Azel's departure with her brother, other noble women approach Ersia, wondering if the crown prince will take action against it. One of them notices how sad the crown prince appears and concludes that it must be because he was separated from her due to the oracle. However, Ersia is aware that there's a rumor about them and wonders if he really has feelings for her. She gradually dismisses the idea, reminding herself that even if he did love her, it is irrelevant since she no longer loves him. Surprisingly, as she turns around, she sees him standing behind her with a sad expression on his face. If I were Ersia, I wouldn't deny that I'm still in love with the crown prince, but he needs to get his act together first. Rias steps in to greet the crown prince before he can start speaking with Ersia. She is comforted and realizes that her brother did it on purpose because they don't get along. Being 3 years younger than Rias and a master of swordsmanship, he can't defeat her brother. Rias is so skilled that he makes the Emperor stand in his seat and applaud him. However, since Rias left for war, they couldn't get the chance to have conversations for the past years. Just as Ersia is hiding behind her brother's back, the Crown Prince expresses concern over Rias' tardiness in meeting the Emperor, who is dissatisfied because he had been waiting for him since the morning. Rias, on the other hand, vows to pay him a visit soon. Ersia looks over Rias' shoulder as they converse and notices the Crown Prince's focus on her, immediately recognizing that he wishes to speak with her. With a look, Ersia assures her brother that it is okay for her to speak with the prince. The Crown Prince asks Ersia's permission to speak with her for a moment. Despite the fact that it's not a command, she decides to obey due to his power and authority. Really, Ersia? I don't believe that's the reason why you agreed to talk to him. When they're alone in the corner, she asks him to make a formal request if he wants to talk to her again. She reminisces about how she used to run towards him like a little child whenever he demanded company when they were together. She snaps out of her thoughts when he corners her against a pillar and comments how she doesn't meet him anymore when he calls for her. He wonders why she doesn't listen to him while caressing her face. His gesture makes her flinch. She pushes him away, stating that she will not back down if a lady criticizes her since she is Princess of Peasantria. When she's about to go, she advises him to look after his fiancée if he doesn't want to see what happened earlier. Refusing to let her walk away, the Crown Prince grabs her hands and kisses them firmly, warning her never to do what she did today again. She then rushes away, reminding herself that she is no longer with the Crown Prince and that her trembling heart when she sees him will fade in time. As Ersia stands alone on the balcony after a time, she recalls how she and her brother had their first dance at today's event. She sighs and leans against the railing, happy that her plans for today worked so well. Out of the blue, Asha appears and informs her that he has something she must know right away. He tells her that he waited for Lady Rutella to return, knowing that it is best to comfort someone when their heart hurts. But then, she tries to get him to bed. However, nothing happened because she was high on drugs and fainted. Ersia, on the other hand, finds it dull and wonders if he approached her solely for this information. He eventually reveals that it is about the High Priest, but before he can, someone enters the balcony. Ersia struggles to conceal him because he's bigger than her, so Asha gets down and hides. However, she maintains control of the situation, standing firm and ready to meet whoever it is. Fortunately, it's just Alfredo who notices Asha and questions who he is. Ersia, on the other hand, distracts him by caressing his face and asking if he wants some tea for tomorrow. He eventually leaves Ersia for privacy after agreeing to meet her for tea. Asha wonders if Alfredo can leave that way, but she tells him that Alfredo will not do anything to harm her. She then requests him to continue what he had been saying earlier. Meanwhile, the Pope and a priest arrive at the ball venue and wait for Ersia to get out of the palace. He feels delighted that the day has finally arrived to meet her. What is this devious Pope planning exactly? Unaware of the Pope's presence, Ersia rejoins Rias at the ball and tells him about what Asha told her. She states that the priest had just visited Rotella a few hours ago, which made him question why. She speculates that they might meet since she is a child of the prophecy. However, if they cling to each other and exchange intimacy during their meetings, it changes the situation, which is exactly what Asha witnessed after hiding in Rotella's closet. Ersia wonders how the High Priest, who is not supposed to love or have children, could commit such a sin. Rias chuckles as he observes her intently, wondering how she had grown up so soon. Rias kisses her cheeks, a common display of affection among her family members, and he asks if she is upset with the Oracle's changes. She doesn't deny that she was, but she isn't right now, and she is concerned about something else. Rias reminds Ersia of their mother's regard for her as a treasure taken by the Emperor, and she laughs heartily. She describes how their family accepts her despite only seeing them a few times a year. She turns to Rias and requests him to inform their mother that the treasure of Peasantria is on her way back. Ersia and Rias decide to leave the party. Ersia first suggests that he can stay a while, but he insists on going back too, partly because he still has some confidential topics to talk about with her. As they walk along the pillars, Rias expresses his surprise about the relationship between the High Priest and Lady Rotella. Ersia is scandalized by the possibility that the High Priest committing a taboo with the lady. They can, of course, tell the temple about it, but they must first gather strong evidence. However, they may have to manipulate the evidence by looking for the High Priest's handwriting. Ersia reminds him as well that based on Lady Rotella's reaction earlier, the oracle might be false. The two are also quite suspicious that not only the High Priest was able to receive the new oracle while the Pope did not. As a veteran of violence, Rias proposes that they make a false testament with the High Priest's handwriting and kill him, letting people believe that he ended his own life. Ersia figures that it will end the whole conflict. However, they can't simply harm someone with divine powers lest they anger the goddess. The most they can do is fake the priest's handwriting. When Rias must attend to something momentarily, Aercia finds herself alone while enjoying the fresh air outside. However, out of nowhere, a hand grabs her and tries to drag her away, telling her that someone important wishes to meet her. Fortunately, she is no weakling. She fights the would-be kidnapper and she manages to stab him with her hidden knife. That is when a white-hooded figure appears before them. Aercia is shocked when the man kneels before the wounded person and heals him, his hand glowing with unknown power. She also notes that the man has white hair, which implies something important. The man then greets her familiarly, introducing himself as Azriel. Only people with holy power can have white hair, and the man claims to be the owner of the temple himself. This only means that this is Pope Azriel, an absolute leader whom even the Emperor will not treat recklessly. Aercia, however, will not let his position intimidate her. The man tells her that he only means to meet her. What's even more shocking is that he shamelessly caressed her face. I know you're good-looking, Mr. Pope, sir, but you're not supposed to touch people you just met so casually. She is quick to brush him off, demanding that he go straight to the point. The Pope playfully answers that he has something to talk to her about. Despite still being relatively dazed about meeting the Pope in this situation, she decides to question why he tried to have her kidnapped. Pope Azriel then beams at her like they're having such a pleasant conversation and replies that he just wanted to know more about her. I don't think that kidnapping people is how you meet people, Pope. The Pope then mentions that he did not expect her to be quite strong, assuming she's just some pampered princess. Aercia is incredibly irked by his comment, but she needs to calm down. Instead, she once again demands that he tell her what he came there to say. However, the Pope suddenly steals her dagger, pointing it at her. He then asks her if she wants to be his, mentioning that she has no reason to accept if she really is the child of the Oracle. She reminds him that she is no longer the one of the Oracle. He playfully questions if she really believes that the Oracle has changed. She admits that she did believe it, but only for a time. Hearing her response amuses him, especially when she proposes to tell him the important information that has caused her change of heart in exchange for an equally vital knowledge from him. He agrees to her proposition, but since it is quite late, he suggests that they see each other some other time. He even dares to caress her hair and kiss her hand shamelessly. No matter how audacious this guy is, he sure is charming. Before he leaves, he gives her a blessing as an apology. She only finds out what this blessing exactly is later that night when she realizes that her bruised cheek no longer hurts. Unfortunately, the stressful day is not over for Aercia. Right when she's about to rest, she is summoned by the Crown Prince. Walking into the prince's royal palace fills Aercia with bittersweet memories. The moments she has shared with the prince in this place have given her so much happiness, and yet all of those are of no use now. The prince has his back to her when she enters his room, but he turns when she greets him. Wearing a frankly quite revealing robe, the man is a sight to behold, truly. We're all so cross with you right now, Mr. Crown Prince, but my God. When they are seated, she questions why he wants to see her, but the prince just stares at her in silence. She tries mentioning Princess Rurtella, and still he doesn't respond. But then he suddenly stands up and walks towards her. He finally speaks and tells her how she is the same as before, not caring about the things that have been happening. He lifts her chin with his fingers and describes her as someone who doesn't care about him. Excuse me? You're the one who decided to ruin your relationship with her, remember? She demands that he let go of her, but he remains stubborn. He gets angrier and leans toward her when she mentions that he should be seeing his princess instead. He is enraged at this point, and he wants to know if she will truly leave this castle. Calmly, she replies that it was he who gave her permission to leave if she wanted to. She emphasizes that since her fiancé asked her for an annulment, there would be no reason for her to stay there. The prince is dismayed by the way she is acting, thinking that having her in his room will change things. Aercia expresses her confusion instead, wanting to know why exactly she's there. He is quite incredulous that she is so relaxed when she has him, but her questioning when he has never been hers only angers him further. He turns away, expressing that he will do what she wants. All his actions vex her now. After all, she has lived a life for him, and yet he leaves her in an instant. She tells him then that she doesn't need him anymore, and that he mustn't forget that it was he who wanted to cancel their marriage. She expresses how worried she is for their country's future if it is left to someone who forgets as easily as he does. Yeah, girl, tell him. Seems like this dude suddenly has amnesia or something. Infuriated, he shouts her full name, and she answers back that she was almost Aercia Venetia, but now she is just his former fiancé. Aercia instantly regrets showing so much emotion, but she can't stop now, so she continues speaking. She tells him how she has fulfilled her duties until the end, and when the prophecy changes, she can only obey his wish to cancel the marriage. At this point, she is trying to leave, but he suddenly grabs her. The prince tells her that if only she begged him to reconsider, then things wouldn't come to this. OMG, this man seriously needs to get his mind sorted. Again, you are the one who wanted the annulment. She can't believe that the prince is blaming her, and even when he denies this, she points out that all he's been doing this whole time is blaming her. He then calls her heartless for doing this so she can tell others that she'll leave without shedding a single tear. That is when Ersia breaks down, with tears streaming down her face. She calls him selfish until the end before leaving. From then on, the prince will live with the woman in the prophecy, and she'll only look at them as a citizen of the empire. Suddenly, she feels the wind pick up only to discover that the Pope has just entered through her window. The Pope smiles charmingly and claims to have something important to tell her. He takes note of her saddened state. He boldly offers to comfort right away, but in exchange, he asks for her love. He also sees the mark that the prince has left on her wrist when he grabbed her earlier and promptly heals her. My gosh, this person is so confusing. What does he want with our Ersia? Ersia, on the other hand, is left utterly confused as to how the Pope managed to enter her room when it is quite high up, but decides to not ask him any more questions about him. She instead goes straight to asking why he came in the first place. He then describes how much she has surprised him. Contrary to his initial idea of her being a pampered princess, he finds her very qualified. His words confuse her further, so she asks him to just say what he means. At that moment, he places his cloak around her shoulder, and without further ado, he declares that he came to seduce her. Of course, Ersia interrupts his actions as a warning, cause why else would a handsome and charismatic man want to seduce her? She thinks that he is doing this to remind her that he could easily get to her if she does anything. Her words further amuse the Pope, saying that he has been wrong about her. He comments that he thought it was only the crown prince who is talented, but it turns out that the princess is not simple either. As the Pope helps her sit on her bed, she describes how the prince is worthy of respect, considering how much he has done for the empire. But she reveals that most of the merit actually goes to her. Turns out, the emperor has told her that she has to help him out if she wants to be the crown princess. Has the prince been taking her credit all this time? My opinion of him is getting lower by the minute. Suddenly, she feels sleepy when usually she can stay up for 2 days. The Pope then explains that his cloak contains divine power, so she won't be able to resist her sleepiness. He tucks her in bed, but she mumbles that an object with divine power should be registered. Azrael responds that the temple isn't under imperial management. He also reminds her that she is no longer the crown princess, which means he can simply bring her with him. At this point, Ersia can hardly focus, but he continues that he can bring her with him right away if she so desires. Ersia tiredly looks at him, which only makes him want to lull her to sleep even more. He does exactly that, but promises to see her again soon. Later on, the Pope goes on to deal with an informant they've captured. After giving out some harsh but reasonable orders, he faces a woman that we're all familiar with, Ersia's main attendant. He reminds her to do her job well before turning away. The woman is forced to spy on her beloved master because she has to be loyal to the one who saved her child. Even if she has to deceive Ersia, she will do it for her child. Meanwhile, Ersia wakes up with a start and is horrified to realize that the conversation with the Pope is actually not a dream. Holding the Pope's cloak, she notes how warm divine power is, and she never wants to forget how it feels. Ersia has been noticing the sudden change of behavior that her attendants are having. They are once again treating her as they did before. The same ones who turned their backs on her the moment the new prophecy was revealed. They even offer her gifts of rare honey and a tiara with a red gem. She is taken aback since tiaras with red gems are reserved for royalty. However, she still graciously accepts her offer. She then tells her attendants that she wishes to rest. Left alone, she contemplates just why these people are acting this way. She decides to know what has happened. She goes out to the stable to meet with Asha. The first thing she tells him is that from then on, he will know that she needs to call him if she wears a specific brooch. This way, they lessen the risk of being discovered as a fraud. Asha easily agrees along with a genuine compliment about how the brooch suits her. Ersia then tells him to rest for the day since he's been quite busy. But he tells her he's fine, even apologizing for not having new information about Princess Rotella and the High Priest. Ersia instead asks about any rumors he's heard that can shed light on why people around her are acting differently. Asha hesitantly reveals that there are some rumors that the Pope has chosen her to be the next canonized saint. This can only mean two things. Either she has divine powers, or it is the position given to the companion of the saint. Despite the rule against people in the church marrying, it is the Pope's sole prerogative and authority to be the exception. Asha suggests steering the public's attention, but he is surprised when Ersia decides to let the rumor be. She intends to make the most of it and use it to her advantage. Asha is devastated. Knowing that she doesn't have divine power, the Pope's intention can only be to marry her. He doesn't want her to be stuck in any more unwanted marriages. Aw, Asha is so adorable and loyal. Look how concerned he is for her. Asha's words have made her think about how she felt about having to marry the prince before. Their marriage has always been inevitable for her, something that would happen whether she liked it or not. One thing is for sure, she thought that nothing else matters as long as she can stay by the prince's side. She assures Asha that those are just rumors, but he comments that she has always treated herself like a tool. Ersia is touched by his concern, and she understands that he's worried for her. Patting his head, she reminds him that what she wants the most is for him to take care of himself. Asha replies that he's fine because it is his job. Still, the princess wants him to tell her if he's having difficulties, especially since he's also dealing with things in the capital on behalf of her father. He then expresses that he finds it hard when he's not there to help her. Smiling fondly, Ersia tells him how much she appreciates him. When she first moved to the palace, Asha's presence is what comforts her. Asha, on the other hand, believes in her strength so much that he is sure that she would have found her own path even if he wasn't there. He is such a green flag. This is how you treat a lady, guys. You believe in their capabilities. He then vows that he is ready to sacrifice his life for her orders because it is his happiness. He doesn't want her to cry or be saddened anymore. Ersia can only thank him for his devotion, telling him to rest for the day. Before she leaves, though, she almost gives Asha a heart attack that she'll get kidnapped in a few days. What? After that, she goes to wake her brother up. Even though she knows he is tired, she needs to tell him the information she's gathered. Rias is forced to get up when his sister calls for him. And boy, is this imagery unnecessary. Not complaining, though. However, put some clothes on, Rias, before you give someone a nosebleed. She tells him about the Pope's visit, which greatly concerns him, but he is relieved when he learns that Ersia manages to ask for a formal meeting. She also tells him how dangerous the Pope is, considering how young and unusual he is from the previous popes. Even though she still needs to talk about the details of the rumor with the Pope, one thing is for sure, the Pope likes her, and she intends to use this opportunity. Ersia knows that if the Pope needs a life partner, no one is as suitable as her. She tells her brother that she'll be kidnapped soon, and the poor guy chokes on his tea. She explains that the Crown Prince will kidnap her, so she needs his help. It will be up to the Fourth Knightage to track her down if it happens, and she wants to attract a particular person from there. Rias is naturally confused, so he asks her why the prince will do such a thing. Ersia answers that the prince will want to keep her by his side. She intends to spread the story about a prince imprisoning a maid he is in love with across the city to give the prince the idea. When asked why she wants to do this, she replies that she wants to confirm something. The young duke is overwhelmed, but he suggests that she come home with him instead. Even though she has originally planned to go home, she can't because of the possibility of everything being just a cunning plan by someone to sabotage Tria. Later on in her study, she contemplates how she's been working non-stop from the beginning. She even handled royal affairs on behalf of the emperor and empress and helped the crown prince strengthen his position. Back then, Alfredo's maternal family had the move to make him crown prince, but in the end, they were defeated. Alfredo survived, but he had to give up on the Venetian royal family, reason why he always feels like he's being chased every time he's sent to war. When the crown prince is troubled or exhausted, she always tries to help out. She doesn't even want to go home because she's forbidden. While she's thinking whether or not she's tired, a letter is delivered to her. It is from the Pope setting the day they would meet. She then orders her attendant to bring the Pope's robe to its owner. She is pleased as well to know that the rumors about them spread like she intended. When National Day arrives, Azrael will have to reveal his identity, but at present, she is the only one who knows. She gazes out the window and comments that she now has something else to think about. Ersia notes how quiet it is in her study that night. She figures that for once she has some free time on her hands, so she decides to read a book. She's about to choose a book when Alfredo asks permission to enter her room. The adorable guy wants to see her and is overjoyed when he learns that she has some time to spare. Seeing as the princess wants to read, he immediately wants to suggest a book for her to read. He proceeds to search the library for something for her to read. However, when he finds something, it's a novel about a secret relationship with a teacher. The boy is so embarrassed, especially as Ersia continues to tease him about it. She's trying to keep the book out of his reach, but the two of them suddenly trip. Fortunately, Alfredo manages to catch her waist, but they are left in a rather awkward position. Their cutesy moment is interrupted when a letter for her arrives. She excuses herself and reads it. Delivered by their trusty bird, the letter from the duchy arrives safely. She finds out that her parents are now aware of the rumor with the Pope. What catches her attention, however, is her mother's instructions. She wants her to look for a book that involves corruption in the noble family. The book details every sin committed by the nobility, including the royal family. She has no idea why her mother wants her to do this. At that moment, Alfredo comes to check on her. Suddenly, she has an idea as to how she'll get the book. She convinces him to retrieve a book from the Imperial Library that only the Imperial family can enter. At first, he is hesitant, for it is forbidden to bring out any book from there, but he eventually folds, wanting to please her so badly. The day that Rias is to return to their duchy, he tells her that on the way to the duchy, there's an epidemic going around in Antigno country. Her brother has a high tolerance for disease, but it'll be dangerous for her if she ever decides to go with him. What's more is that the Imperial did not give any aid, all because it is a place that's at odds with the Imperial Palace for producing faithful priests. She wonders if the Crown Prince has calculated this from the start to keep her from returning home. She assumes that the prince wants to tie her to the capital and warn the temple as well. Will he declare animosity towards the temple? Ercia imagines how wise the Crown Prince is by detaining her in the Imperial Palace, as soon as he hears of Azriel's plans to make Ercia his canonized saint. For context, Azriel is the Pope who rumors tell is planning to choose the ex-Crown Princess, Ercia Pesentria, as his canonized saint, which refers to the companion of the Pope, or in normal people, his lover. Ercia worries about what the Crown Prince is planning upon tying her in the palace to avoid agreeing with the Holiness's offer. For this reason, she thinks that the Emperor may not also let it happen, as it will jeopardize the power of the Empire against the Church. Meanwhile, on one of the tables in Ercia's room, her brother leans on and thinks of wanting to go to the church as well, as he has errands to run through. Moments after thinking, he changes the topic and asks his sister if she plans on moving out of the Imperial Palace. She agrees to his proposition immediately. Because of the current situation she's in, she cannot easily move out as much as she wants to, but she is well assured by her brother that he will be processing it real soon. Soon, their conversation progresses as her brother asks about what she'll be discussing with the Pope. She plans on telling him about the gossip regarding her being chosen to be the Pope's canonized saint, planning to tell even the Crown Prince too. On the flip side, Princess Lurthella hasn't shown herself after the scandalous actions she did at the ball, and how she's been rumored to have an intimate relationship with the High Priest. Ercia's brother wonders if the Emperor had already learned of the gossip about Ercia being the canonized saint. If so, he assumes that the Empire may consider bringing her back to the Imperial Palace as part of the family. Ercia thinks deeper and loudly considers the easiest way for the Emperor to keep her at their side and away from the Church is to marry her to Alfredo, the second prince. Even being the abandoned princess of the Oracle and given her commendable contributions to the royal family, she believes that being a potential saint is a threat to the royal family. Later on, she asks her brother if he can accompany her to the church, but he has better plans for the day, so he cannot. Although saddened, Ercia still has to go and asks her brother to commission her a new dagger instead. Her anxiety about going alone stems from the fact that the Emperor has 14 guards accompanying her to the church, letting her feel way too guarded. Nonetheless, her brother reassures her that she can achieve her goals. He lends her his small knife in case and tells her to stay close to Hiran Matilda as he trusts him most among all her guards. Soon, she begins her journey to church, fully guarded. Ercia journeys with Hiran riding on his horse. The carriage that was supposed to be her transport to the church was broken, so they had to do horseback riding. She feels uncomfortable being at the back, but manages not to complain as she tries to converse with Hiran on the way. They discuss her brother and Hiran's camaraderie until they've reached the city, which they need to pass through in order to arrive at the church. In this situation, the commoners gather around her pack, given how grandiose her expedition is for having 14 guards from the Imperial Palace follow her along the way. Sounds of gossip meet her first before she waves at a little girl who looks up to her with sparkling eyes. Her ethereal beauty captures the heart of the people, and so they gleefully greet her with enthusiasm as she passes by the area. Then, moments sooner, Hiran informs her about the bumpy ride from here on out, because he will hasten the pace now to quickly pass through a forest to keep her safe from any spontaneous harm. She then tells him to do what he knows best, and informs him to bring a separate horse as her brother will come pick her up along with the guards and Hiran. Not long after, Hiran's horse halts from the harsh command of one of the church's guards. Hiran intends to fight back, but Ercia stops him before he can even do so, and she immediately shows them her hair just to let them recognize her easily. Taken aback, the guards cease and welcome her upon recognition as the princess that the holiness awaits. Hiran then escorts her inside the church and stops outside the Pope's office. The church looks magnificent with the statues of angels, making it look more sacred. As she enters the Pope's room, they greet each other formally, not until the door closes, and they seem to start off with the topic about the Pope's spreading of the gossip. He confirms to her that it was his doing, and he continues to offer to help her scare the nobles. Although she has several advantages to his offer, it seems suspicious. She does not like playing around and rejects him instantly. He then provokes her by titling her as the Emperor's marionette, but she does not plan to back out. She threatens him that she will have to leave if this is the case, but he stops her quickly. This confirms how they need each other, so they both calm down and start the conversation all over. The Pope then asks her the purpose of visiting as they immediately lock eyes in synchrony. Ercia does not waste any time and confronts the Pope about her being the gossiped soon-to-be saint. The Pope expresses his intentions to her on a different wavelength of words. If one possessed divine power, being a saint has a symbolic meaning. The Pope explains what being a saint is as written in the scriptures. Ercia quite perceives his words as ownership, after she is told by the Pope that being the canonized saint means not only one with the church and for the people, but as his own. So she weighs her advantages and gathers her words. And because she thinks the Pope has the upper hand, she portrays a brave princess by threatening the Pope with her possible refusal. The Pope then makes her realize how powerful being a saint will be. Compared to being a normal citizen and ex-crown princess, who will have to kneel in front of the crown prince and Lurthella, who will be taking her place as crown princess, being the saint will grant her the power to be more than the prince. She will have no heavy duties compared with that of an empress, nor will she have to do anything but be praised and accepted by the people naturally. Silence fills the room as both gather their thoughts into their battle of mind and manipulation. Several minutes later, Ercia asks the Pope what he will get by putting her in that position, and he answers her with no hesitation. The Pope wants her as his own, and there's nothing more powerful and complete than having Ercia beside him as he claims. This puts her on a pedestal, but she turns the table by telling him that she is not owned by anyone, but he can be hers. Meanwhile, the Pope agrees but tells her another story. This time, it shocks Ercia in a bad way. He tells her about the prior Pope's last will and says that the oracle, or Ercia being chosen, was a lie. She stresses out of role confusion and regrets working too hard for nothing. She then asks the Pope what she should be believing in. As if brainwashing her, the Pope asks her to believe what makes her happy, either the oracle and Ercia as the bringer of stability to the nation being a lie or not. Stating so, the Pope holds Ercia's face and reassures her that she has the potential to bring stability and peace to the people. As the Emperor's marionette. Sheesh, I'd get insulted as it seemed extremely personal and ego-churning. The Pope's words enrage the princess as he speaks of the Emperor exploiting her abilities. She explains to him how capable she is regardless of the resources and power the Emperor or the Crown Prince provided her. She steps back from the Pope and comes close to the glass window to point at the large clock tower in the middle of the city. She informs him proudly that she was the sole person who proposed the clock tower, which most nobles did not support. So, she planned the making of the extravagant clock tower alone, and in an instant, most nobles agreed to her proposition. Now, her project is one of the reasons why tourism increased extravagantly, yielding more riches for the economy. She then proves her point that what she did was for the people and not for the Emperor. She was able to achieve that feat alone, persuading the nobles with her abilities. Her success was not handed to her by the Emperor at all. Despite being abandoned by the Emperor and the Crown Prince, they do not realize how great her impact is to the Empire. With that being said, the Pope describes her greediness as something he did not expect. The Pope is so sly. Like, come on! A little shift of topic happens, and eventually, the Pope bids farewell shortly, not even escorting her out of his office, yet allowing her to use his name to her advantage. She leaves their conversation as is and is about to leave the church when a couple of nobles approach her with glee just after knowing the princess's encounter with the Pope. She thinks of when or where she can use the Pope's name to her advantage while she interacts with the nobles when the high priest, whom she has been looking for, shows up. With an irritated expression, the high priest scolds the nobles for being too noisy in the church. The nobles do not let it slide and retaliate in words. The nobles begin to argue, but Ercia sees the situation as an opportunity. She stops them from arguing as she favors the high priest politely and offers to drink tea with them instead. They all join the princess, leaving the high priest behind, while also deeming him as less merciful than the princess. I can see your manipulation here. Quite cruel. Following this, Ercia enjoys tea with the nobles and finds the scenario an advantage to use the Pope's high regard. She compares the goodness of the Pope with the High Priest, which the nobles agree with, and in turn favors Ercia even more. Lastly, the nobles bring up the topic of Hirin Matilda, who is a high-rank guard in Ercia's company today. They interpret this great treatment of the royal family towards Ercia as a symbol of high regard for the future empress. She feels great to hear them say these things until one of the nobles asks, out of curiosity, how good her relationship is with the crown prince. A low-rank count among the nobles present speaks his mind and promptly asks about Ercia's prolonged stay in the palace, despite being scrapped off the title crown princess. She greets the count and remembers him because of how desperate he is to be known by his highness, regardless of how low his rank is. She then realizes why the emperor does not see him of any potential because of his lack of tact. She then tells them half the truth, that it was his highness's decision to let her stay longer, and right on time, her brother comes to fetch her. She takes her leave, and good equestrian clothing is given to her by Hirin, while a horse is brought by her brother. She tells Hirin and the guards to go ahead and thank them. She then changes into a fitting outfit for horseback riding and journeys back to the palace with her older brother. Along the way, her brother tells her that she looks happy horseback riding. At first, she denies his claim, but as soon as she realizes her feelings, her brother will be preparing her horse at the duchy for her return. She is pleased to hear that from her brother, but then she remembers her brother's conquest and reason for joining the war when he really had nothing to gain or lose. He explains subtly that he somehow gained from it, but she refuses to believe that he gained much from risking his own life as a duke. She begs him to tell her his intentions of joining that war, not allowing him to brush off the question any longer. He then tells her half of the whole truth. He tells her that besides the honor he was given, a small mountain area is given as his ownership. She cannot believe him being petty, knowing how much land their family owns, not until he tells her that the mountain is full of jewels. I'd risk my life for those riches too, you know? Riches! Ercia learns of her brother's accomplishments and gains from the war, which is a hidden gem mine that was given by the kingdom of Sapia. She feels proud of her brother, but expresses her slight despondency of him putting his life in danger for it. Yet again, he defends himself by assuring her that doing something that risky is according to his confidence to achieve something. Moving forward, she returns her brother's dagger, but he asks her to keep it for a while. Eventually, they arrive, not at the palace, but in Viscount Kane's place. It is where her custom dagger is currently prepared. So while waiting, both sit in the waiting room while the servants serve the Duke some tea, while the others show Ercia some ready-made daggers. The Viscount comes to their aid and keeps them entertained while waiting, yet he seems anxious about something. He then asks the Duke about Ercia, whom he does not know is the Duke's sister. And because of his anxiety, he accidentally kicks the table in front of the Duke, causing the tea to spill. He rapidly apologizes for his clumsiness, but only puts himself on the Duke's bad side with only the Duke's lengthy patience, and Ercia's presence keeping him from getting punished. Sweaty and jittery, he presents him with a sketchy, cheap, and ornamental-looking dagger. How can your conscience let you sleep after scamming people just like that, bro? At first, Ercia seems to have a liking for its beauty. However, her brother provided great quality gems to make her dagger, while the Viscount exploited the gems and offered them low-quality material. This almost turns the Duke volatile, but he stops himself and instead takes his leave with Ercia. Fortunately, Ercia is willing to pay the price of the dagger and asks the Viscount to send the bill to the duchy for the payment. Expectedly, both leave the Viscount almost wounded, in fear and regret of his doings after the Duke divulges his intentions of cutting connections with the Viscount. Serves you right for your bad service and trickery! Upon going out of the Viscount's premises with the dagger in Ercia's hands, the Duke asks why she bought such a useless weapon. He then adds how most daggers that are made these days are becoming trash and lose their main purpose. She then reasons that the dagger can be used as an ornament, yet is taken aback by what her brother tells her next. He expresses his thoughts about the legendary sword that she's holding. He implies that even having the sword hung on the wall, no matter how sharp it is, isn't useful. It merely functions as it should and will eventually be replaced sooner. She thinks of his words and asks him if he has something hidden in his words that he wants to tell her. Unfortunately, what he said was simply about the sword. Meanwhile, Ercia relates the sword to herself. Like the sword, she simply is replaceable as of the moment the oracles changed. She then drops the topic and walks with her brother to town. In the meantime, they look for gifts that Ercia can bring home to the duchy for her parents. Ercia asks the Duke's opinion on a marine blue-colored gem that she wants to gift her mom when she finds out that her brother has left her side. Expectedly, a swarm of girls is keeping him busy, so she decides to buy the gem anyway. The vendor seems to know that she could be tricked, so he asks her for a higher price and asks her to wait. The vendor offers her convenient delivery of the gift directly to the receiver. But as soon as he finds out who she is, his face speaks fear. Suspicious. Girl, you've been living inside the palace. You have to learn how to identify scams. Moreover, the Duke's audience had to go as Ersia wanted to leave already. So the two walk back to their horses, and suddenly the topic of conversation is about him giving up being an heir for his sister. It all starts when Ersia teases him for being a duke without a wife, and soon shifts to his role in their family. Dumbstruck, Ersia cannot believe how willing her brother is to step down for her, despite feeling quite insulted that her brother unconsciously reminded her once again that she is the ex-crown princess. However, she drops the feelings and jokes around with the Duke when a haggard little girl grabs Ersia's clothes and steals her attention as she offers Ersia her flowers. The little girl selling flowers shows the symptoms of the plague which is spreading across the slums. Ersia still does not hesitate to buy some of her flowers, and it makes the girl happy to receive silver coins. Yet again, her approach towards nobles seems like a taboo among the slum people, as they usually get dragged away after such encounters. As soon as the kid goes away, the Duke speaks with Ersia about the present plague and what to do about it. Ersia stays silent and ponders what to do about it, knowing that the recent plague is different from the last plague that killed extreme numbers of people. Luckily, this plague can be treated if attended promptly. However, aid is hopeless to come in the slums, hence killing many of the marginalized sectors of the town. Heedfully, Ersia lays her plans into action and no longer hesitates to share them with her brother, also to ask for his help. Is it just me, or is she turning into a girl boss here? She plans on setting fire to the slum areas, but makes it look like it was the Crown Prince's plan. Wait, what? Those poor people! You better have a great explanation about this. She meticulously works her plans based on what the prince has done and said to her in the past. The last time they passed through the slums on fire, it was the prince's doing, so she intends to do the same, but better. She plans not to harm anyone as much as possible, so she requests for her brother to ask some of his knights to dress like imperial knights and help the marginalized escape, while the Peasantria family offers the people a residential area where they can renew their lives. This will allow her to gain the people's trust further, and she doesn't want to allow the prince to step forward any further before she can land her foot forward first. Actively, the Duke's people heard her orders from the bushes that they had been hiding in all this time. The Duke imparts his support for his sister all the way as they hold hands to see the start of her slum revitalization project. That's actually a wise strategy, Princess. Way to go! But make sure that no innocent life is lost. The fire broke out just as Ersia planned. People are in panic, begging someone to save their lives. Suddenly, Ersia notices a woman holding what seemed like a baby, so she asks her brother to help. Those who have seen Rias wrapping his coat around the woman wonder if he has come to help all of them. Is it just me, or do you guys also think there's probably a string of fate here? Just then, the knights of the Peasantria family assemble to help as Ersia assures their safety, igniting hope to everyone. 4 years ago, there was an epidemic in the slums where people couldn't eat or clean themselves properly. This lack of hygiene caused a lot of people to die. However, the way the Crown Prince chose to handle it was by burning down the slums. He removed the poor people who were the source of the plague, to which the public praised him for like a saint. How inhumane! They were his people! Ersia makes a bold announcement promising medical care for everyone's needs. However, the people struggle to believe it, feeling that doctors wouldn't bother with them due to their dirty appearance. Even with the assurance of treatment, their concern shifts to finding a place to stay. Ersia approaches a coughing man, helping him up while emphasizing that their cleanliness won't determine their worthiness of care. She assures them that Peasantria will assist in finding accommodation. The crowd reacts with astonishment, showering Ersia with gratitude. Ersia anticipates that once word of her kindness spreads, people will contrast her compassion with the actions of the Crown Prince, who persecuted those in the slums during the pandemic. Rias, worried for Ersia's safety, urges her to leave once the doctors arrive. Ersia agrees, trusting her brother's aid to handle the situation. Suddenly, the girl who sold flowers to Ersia earlier calls to express gratitude for arranging a doctor's visit. Rias, tapping Ersia's shoulder, reveals that the boy she's accompanying suffers from peladria disease. Peladria is caused by parasites growing inside the body, leading to symptoms like unquenchable thirst, persistent weakness, and notably, blackening of the fingernails. Aware of its contagious nature, Ersia remains cautious. However, she observes something peculiar about the girl. Upon inquiry, the girl confirms she gathers flowers daily, yet remarkably, she shows no signs of peladria despite close contact with her infected brother. When questioned about the flower source, she gestures towards a rugged mountain, an unlikely place for someone of her age to explore. Concerned, Aercia arranges for a night to examine the girl, but no alarming signs are found. Digging deeper, Aercia learns of the girl's parentage from the war-torn, cold Asura kingdom, where children are often molded as human weapons. The Asura kingdom, renowned for its towering women with exceptional strength, surprises Aercia upon considering the possibility of the girl sharing this lineage, even as a half-blood. Aercia queries the boy about any Asura blood in their lineage, to which he clarifies they're only half-siblings, his parents both from the Empire. This revelation dispels Aercia's suspicions that the boy's small stature might be due to illness. Addressing the girl as a child, Aercia offers two options: to join the Peasantria Duchy, ensuring meals, shelter, and assistance for her brother's treatment, or to receive treatment and reside in the soon-to-be-built residential area. Moved by the girl's offer of assistance, Aercia signals for her inclusion, touched by the girl's gratitude for Aercia's kindness towards her brother and the simple gesture of purchasing flowers. Despite feeling she has little to offer, the girl expresses her desire to join the duchy. In a tender moment, Aercia cups the girl's cheeks, encouraging her not to underestimate her value, neither to Aercia nor to herself. That's right! Just because she's a child or someone without a noble status doesn't mean she's less. After that, Rias talks to Aercia about how they coincidentally found a bloodline of the kingdom of Asura. And there's no doubt about that because at her age, she was to traverse in treacherous mountain paths without a single injury, which means that she surpasses ordinary human capabilities. Rias agrees, explaining further that even swords don't penetrate their muscles easily. He also fought some before, during wars, and those were people sold through illegal trafficking since Asura Kingdom doesn't send their citizens outside. He then asks her how amusing it is that just because they possess power, they are being exploited without their consent. Aercia has a sudden realization that Rias isn't referring to the slaves from the Asura Kingdom, but rather to her own circumstances. As chosen by the gods as a symbol of peace and stability, she had to go to the palace against her will. So Aercia replies that she isn't amused by that. It's a pity if there are those who are being used and die against their own will. Even the knights from the Asura Kingdom, who are now in the duchy, stabbed their masters to survive and escaped, and Rias was the one who brought them in. Aercia feels sorry for the dead, but she's proud of those who struggled to survive. Rias strokes her hair and admits that he underestimated her. But Aercia understands that it may have saddened him to see his younger sister not complaining even when things are difficult. The only one who can pity her is herself. It's regrettable she won't engage in something she can't handle. Yes, Queen Mother, we salute you! Just then, the siblings talk about how they spent their childhood together, teasing Aercia if he should call her a baby now that she's no longer the crown prince's consort. Aercia tells him to stop when suddenly, a knight informs him that everything is settled down. Aercia commands him and the others, further instructing them to stay and assist the doctors while the rest can return. Just as when they're set to leave, a knight informs her that the Empress has collapsed from poison. Rias calls her sister, hinting that it must be a scheme to keep her captive. However, Aercia knows better. She has no intention of playing around as he pleases. That night, she goes to a restaurant with her brother and tries a few shops. In the carriage, Rias informs her that he will not be staying at the Imperial Palace for a moment. Instead, he will stay at the Duchy's Manor, a famous estate directly granted by the Emperor to the ancestors of their family. Looking at the grand estate, she vows to herself that there'll be no one to stop her from doing whatever she wants. We're also looking forward to your success, Aercia. Since she'll become the owner of that estate, Rias speaks on behalf of their family, hoping her to return home soon, but they can wait for as long as necessary. However, upon their arrival, Rias stops her, grappling with doubts and confusion over her willingness to enter the clutches of the Crown Prince and allow herself to be confined within the palace. Aercia explains that for now, there are two people they need to be cautious about. First is the Emperor, and the second one is the Crown Prince. From blocking the territories on the way to the duchy, it shows his determination to capture her and hold her by any means necessary. So if she gets caught up in his plan, the better. Rias replies that it's dangerous, as expected of his answer. But they won't know if it's an enemy or not until she goes. Rias becomes silent for a moment, concerned for his younger sister's safety. Aercia asks if he already prepared what she asked to, which he positively replies. Before going in, Rias warns her that if she has a chance to have a proper conversation with the Crown Prince, she must speak wisely. Aercia understands that what her brother meant was that she doesn't know what will happen if she crosses that line. Even though she's the one who grew up as a tool to extract abilities by force in her childhood, somehow it seems like her brother is angrier about it. And we're also angry about it. As she walks through the hallway, she notices how quiet it is. At 5, when she first arrived at the palace, she wasn't used to this silence. Soon after, she wanted to see her family, and not long after, she often shed tears. At some point, that became excessive greed. The emperor told her that she shouldn't become a selfish person who'd abandon status as a future empress just to return to the duchy. So, she humbly accepted the emperor's words, instilling in her mind that her longing to see her family was also selfish. So she learned to work hard for the future of the empire. She then remembers that she hasn't written a formal letter to her parents. If only she had the freedom to write letters and go outside, what a privilege it would be. As she keeps thinking about happy things with her family, her mood spoils as the crown prince calls her name, asking if she just arrived. Ernos asks what she was doing for arriving so late. Instead of answering, she inquires how the servants and the crown prince himself waited for her. But if he has no intention of answering, then she'll take her leave. Ersia knows very well that she must show strength, or else she'll only be devoured. Ernos then reveals that he heard she went to the temple. From there, Ersia understands that they are keeping an eye on her through the servants. His expression speaks volume, and she's disgusted how they're all his people. With many eyes watching, Ersia encourages him to meet her in the reception hall to finish their conversation. But Ernos insists that there's no need for that. As soon as she opens the door to her room, she finds all her things scattered on the floor. Ernos then accuses her of being a criminal who attempted to execute the empress. What? Is he out of his mind? Ersia smirks. She didn't expect him to make her play around his palm like this. She then asserts that it won't be enough to tie her down. However, Ernos exclaims that her mother's poison medicine has been discovered in her room. Ersia struggles to free from his tight grip, enjoying seeing her unable to move in front of him. Feeling the weight of his dominance, Ersia warns of requesting a formal trial if he doesn't release her. However, Ernos remains confident in his authority, refusing to yield to her threats. In a cryptic turn, Ernos questions why Ersia would cause unnecessary trouble, leading to complications with the plan and inciting the people's resentment towards them. Ersia counters, mocking his weakness as evident in his indecision between Lurtella and herself. She realizes that once she's proven innocent, he stands to lose everything. Ernos remains confident, insisting that until proven otherwise, Ersia remains a criminal. However, undeterred by his threats, Ersia bodily challenges him to proceed with his silly scheme, confident that she will ultimately prove his accusations to be nothing but delusions. Ernos then proposes another thing. If she apologizes and sincerely stays by his side now, then he may consider forgiving her. I can't believe this guy. Where did he get that audacity and confidence? Ersia mocks Ernos' expectation that she would apologize for a crime she didn't commit. Having learned from their engagement, she realizes that Ernos' true desire is to witness her humiliation, to see her dignity shattered as she begs him for mercy. Just then, Ernos calls Hirin to take her away, but before that, Ersia encourages him to do as he pleases to his heart's content and regret as much as he wants. But even if he doesn't want to, she will make him regret it. Also, if he pleads for her to stay by his side, then she might consider it. In a surprising turn, Ernos abruptly turns away and leaves them both. As they proceed towards what Ersia assumes will be her confinement, Hirin reveals that the room they're heading to is actually Ernos' room, leaving Ersia stunned by the unexpected twist. When she settles inside, she doubts if it's really confinement with how the room was luxuriously prepared in advance. To test the limits, she asks for a cup of tea and to bring her personal servant, Azel. However, Hirin apologizes that her request would be hard to complete. This time, Azel would have been the first one caught, but she will definitely save her. Just then, she playfully points out how Hirin is in the same room with a single woman who's not even married. But Hirin is quite an upright man, saying that he's just watching her under Ernos' order. Ersia wonders that if she's really the criminal, then she wouldn't be in a luxurious room. Hirin remains silent for a moment and changes the topic. Suddenly, Ernos' faithful dog arrives with the food and firmly tells her that she can't receive any guests as per Ernos' order. The use of silver utensils to signify the food's lack of poison only adds to Ersia's confusion. As Ersia puzzles over Ernos' intentions, she can't help but wonder what he truly wants from her in this charade. Don't let your guard down, Ersia. Despite her disdain for receiving similar treatment when she was still the crown princess, Ersia resolves to endure the current situation after seeing Ernos' expression. Questioning Ernos' motives and confused by his behavior, Ersia wonders how he can act like an emperor while treating her like a prisoner in luxury. That night, when a servant finds medicine hidden in Ersia's clothes, she shows its danger by letting a few drops fall to the floor. She tells the servants to tell the crown prince that many people want her, warning him that she won't be defenseless. When the servants leave in panic, Ersia approaches Hirin and taps his shoulder, further leaving him with options to lose his family or lose his position, knowing that he is a trusted knight by Rias. This is one thing I like about her. She knows how to use people well. Hirin, frightful of this approach, asks Ersia what she wants. Nothing special, really. She just needs him to send the letter to her brother. That night, Ersia dreamt about her childhood memory when her mother gave her a little dagger. She was reminded to always be cautious around the person closest to her and to not show her true feelings to anyone so that she could protect her heart. When she wakes up, she finds Shalia, who was in charge during the night. Since the breakfast was too much, she asks her to sit and eat together, but Shalia refuses. Ersia asks if it's because she's no longer the crown princess. Surprisingly, Shalia pulls the chair and sits down. Now that's power without intimidation. Ersia isn't wasting seconds, so she asks her to be her temporary escort knight, asking how she became an imperial knight. Shalia apologizes for not being able to answer a personal question. However, as soon as Ersia opens about helping Shalia's sickly younger brother through the temple's treatment, Shalia desperately kneels in front of her, begging for help. Ersia assures her that she will help her younger brother get the treatment, and all she has to do is bring a book with a black cover from her study. Just then, Hirin comes in and informs Ersia that he has delivered the letter to the temple. Looking out the window, she remembers how the girl from the slums offered her to take the poisonous flower as a thank you for treating them well. That time, she suspected the girl to kill her, but the girl's beaming smile spoke otherwise. Maybe the girl doesn't know it was poisonous since she's immune to it? She smiles, reflecting on her mother's warnings. She no longer needs to worry, as she has become an independent adult who looks out for herself. In the temple, the Pope receives Ersia's letter, impressed by her continued wisdom and insight. He then instructs the priest to prepare a carriage for their journey to the imperial palace. With that silver hair and blue eyes, he reminds me of Gojo Satoru from Jujutsu Kaisen. So cool and handsome. One morning, Rias receives a letter about Ersia's situation, but his main concern is how Ernos tries to take control of Ersia. Could it be that the recently revealed oracle is a lie? Wondering what Ersia wants to find out eagerly, the butler suggests to step back and look at the problem from a wider angle. And so, he suggested it could be love, leaving Rias stoned. The butler thinks maybe Ernos doesn't realize his own feelings since they've been together for so long. Then, a servant interrupts with bad news. The Duke and Duchess of Pesantria are coming. Meanwhile, the Emperor hears about it too and knows their daughter is important to them. He won't let them take her away, especially after all the effort they put into making her a good princess. If the Oracle really has changed, then they'll arrange a marriage for that person to marry Alfredo. As for the Empress, the Emperor is determined to resolve that issue too. If the Empress were to die, he plans to use the compensation for her death to keep Ersia confined to the Imperial Palace forever. This would also put the Pesantria family under his control. He is obsessed about having control over both Ersia and everything in the Empire. Such a greedy man! In Ersia's room, Shalia hands her the book she requested last time about Azel. Ernos himself is the one managing her. I really do hope she's okay. Between the pages of the book, Ersia discovers a paper revealing the whereabouts of the Empress, an abandoned castle. This revelation doesn't surprise Ersia, as she had suspected something was amiss with the Empress's health after their engagement was broken off. She had thought postponing their meeting was for the best. Ersia knows that the alliance between the Duchy of Pesantria and Labra poses the greatest threat to the Emperor. Therefore, she believes the Empress's family won't allow the Emperor to harm her right away. It might be a subtle warning not to get too close. With her suspicions confirmed, Ersia decides it's time for the show. As soon as Hirin leaves the room, she empties a vial onto the floor, contaminating the food set on her table. When she takes a bite, she falls to the floor, blood coming from her mouth. Meanwhile, Shalia reports to Ernos that Ersia has been neglecting her meals and has been asking about Azel and requesting to open the window. Despite reminiscing about their childhood, where Ersia often cried for her parents, Ernos firmly instructs Shalia to seal the windows completely so Ersia cannot see outside. Suddenly, Hirin bursts into the room with troubling news. Some time ago, when the Empress's health started to decline, Ernos had pleaded with the Emperor to send Ersia to the duchy temporarily. He feared that if he didn't, it might strain his relationship with the Duke, who valued Ersia. However, the Emperor warned Ernos about the possibility of Ersia refusing to return, and reminded him that she doesn't belong to him, but to the Emperor, as he was the one who made her. However, at that time, Ernos had believed Ersia's words, that she would always support him. Yet the Emperor made him doubt his achievements, reminding him that while Ersia may need him, she doesn't truly need him. If he were to ask to end the engagement, she would leave him without hesitation. Of course! Ersia is not the type to lower her dignity and beg for you to treat her right. In the present, Ersia remains unconscious for 3 days straight despite receiving the antidote. Ernos diligently spoon-feeds her the medicine while constantly monitoring her temperature. Unable to suppress his concern, he finally asks her if she dislikes him so much that she would want to die. Well, yes, she hates you a lot, and no, she won't take her life for that sole reason. Miraculously, Ersia regains consciousness, and as Ernos wipes her tears, the first word she utters is his name. Ersia wakes up at the sight of the Crown Prince's quarters. After being accused of murder, as planned, she was brought to the prince's chambers after risking her life by eating the poisoned food as well. The messenger bird comes to the window to knock with its beak. Ersia stands to open the window and take the message that it brought for her. A small potion comes along with the message, which is from her brother, the Duke. He apologizes for overestimating Ersia's immunity from the poison, so he wants her to drink the small neutralizer that the bird brought along to make sure that she will be out of danger. Ersia smiles when she soon learns about the Emperor's condemnation of the accusations directed at her against killing the Empress. Yet her brother's queries are still left unanswered about Ersia's ultimate goal, and whether it was worth risking her body and health. She then lets the bird fly away before the prince catches her in front of the open window. He comes closer to her and stops about 6 feet away. Ersia, without wasting her time, informs the prince of her leave by tomorrow. Her departure is due to the false accusation brought upon her. The prince then inquires what she will do if he refuses her leave. Ersia's expression from calm turns into annoyance as she tells him that he cannot stop her. She even adds that if he accuses her of murder again, she will dare assume that he wished for Ersia's death. And this puts the Crown Prince on edge. The tension grows heavier when Ersia begins to recount the significant times that she allowed the Crown Prince to decide for her life without even questioning any of it. She recalls all the times she followed his plans and orders in order to help him and the Empire, and asked him when she was going to keep doing so. Undeniably, the prince shows his frustrations all out, but calmly. He feels provoked and asks Ersia what gave her such patience to keep her petty pride up when he allowed her to choose all the time based on his perspective. He confronted her about the times that she recounted to him and why she never voiced out or cried. What he wanted was to see her needing him because he would have supported her even without her Crown Prince's title. What a jerk! Get over yourself! Enraged, Ersia raises her voice and asks him if he ever cared to ask her during those times if she wanted what he asked of her, if she wanted the engagement or any of her duties. If this was the case, she would have been able to confess her love for His Highness, the Crown Prince. This information comes as a shock to the prince, silencing him. Serves you right. The Crown Prince's face turns red after learning about Ersia's feelings and sacrifices. He assumes that her prolonged stay in the palace and how she managed to endure the discrimination of the people after stepping down as the Crown Princess were all because of her love for him. It creates a huge impression on him to the point of liking the thought of her sacrificing for him. However, Ersia rephrases her words and imparts to him that she once loved him, but now she's exhausted from what she has done up until this point. As soon as she informs the prince that she no longer loves him and that she's ready to let him go, she walks away from him and leaves his chambers to prepare her things. Lastly, she thanks him for letting her confirm her feelings before she closes his doors. While heading to her room, she looks at the moon, and with sadness in her eyes, she assures herself that everything will be fine now. However, the prince approaches her with an ominous expression on his face. He confronts her and pulls her long pink hair. For a second, she fears his cruelty, afraid that he'll do her harm. In just a moment, the prince had already cut her long hair. It's as if the length of her hair symbolizes their time together, and he chooses to end it by doing so, leaving Ersia dumbstruck and crying. Ugh! How dare you! Girl, if this is not a walking red flag, I don't know what is. She then runs to her room and sits in front of her mirror to cut the rest of her hair. But a knock on the door is heard. She holds the scissors in preparation to face the prince again, but what surprises her is to see the Pope's face instead of His Highness. For the first time in 20 years, the Pope reveals to her that it is the first time knocking on doors, letting her know subtly that he respects her space. He then attempts to join her and wipe her tears away, but she asks him to leave her be. He refuses to and asks her to confirm what she wrote in the letter that she sent him about turning down his offer to be the chosen one of the temple. As low as she thinks of herself, she tells the Pope that she's already exhausted from everything and is now in sorrow for being left with nothing. This turns out as an advantage for the Pope to show his love for her without discrimination of whether being the chosen one or just anyone as stated by the heavens. His words calm Ersia down as he cups her face with his hand and puts his other hand on her waist. He verbalizes her words of wisdom on taking her own path and worrying about nothing else but her happiness. Eventually, he covers her eyes while supporting her back and asks her to rest now as she has endured greatly. The period of the first ever saintess's existence in the Imperial Palace was the most peaceful and prosperous era of the Empire until her demise. Before she died, she told the people of her testament that the one who can bring stability and peace to the Empire again shall be of the same pink hair as hers. Her word then became the Oracle, which has profoundly bombarded Ercia since she was a child. During her childhood, she was always left confused about her role as the Chosen One, why she had to be away from her family most of the time, and why she is kept inside the palace. She sought for answers, until one day when the Empire was experiencing drought and was on the verge of falling into ruins, the people put high pressure on a child as the Chosen One. People began to curse her and question whether her existence was merely a lie made by the Saintess. Ercia had to step up her game and carry with her the weight of the role and responsibility she was dragged into by the Oracle. She dedicated her whole life to the Empire up until the time she learned that the Oracle was all a lie. Being of a mature age, she wilts in sorrow and mourns all her efforts wasted on a lie, and now she does not know what to do anymore. Ercia wakes up with her hair all cut into a shoulder-length style. She may have forgotten about what happened last night with the Pope, since she storms in front of the Pope, who is present in her room early in the morning. She is then reminded by the Pope that his presence today is because of her wish to accompany her throughout the night while she sleeps. This, in turn, embarrasses her, but then the Pope asks if she is still in sorrow like last night. She unhesitatingly says the weakness was only until last night. I have always seen such girl power throughout the chapters, and she's showing it again! Go, girl! The Pope speaks of her experience as Princess Consort, and he believes that her skills and intellect are the assets that she can offer to him in return for the Temple's title of Saint. He believes that overpowering something like the Temple or the Empire is something he cannot do alone, and all he needs is someone like Ercia. So she gathers her thoughts and accepts his offer, but in one condition. Both should not engage in the game of love. Hence, they shake hands in agreement as the Pope kisses her hand. The Pope asks her to prepare the things she needs to bring home, as he will be preparing the carriage for their departure. And before he leaves her room, he informs her to meet him in the garden at noon. Subsequently, Alfredo is heading to Ercia's room when the Pope passes by him under his cloak. Alfredo does not notice who he is and assumes he's another one of Ercia's guards. Before Alfredo can even enter her room, Ercia returns some books on the shelves when something falls off the book that she usually speaks about with the Empress. It is not a disease, is what was written in the letter. But before she can concentrate, Alfredo barges in and greets her farewell. He shows his sadness at knowing that his safe space in the palace will be leaving. But Ercia assures him that what she's about to do will change his path and will give him a chance to revive his honor. A servant knocks on her door and cuts their conversation short as she has to leave already. They bid their goodbyes and leave separately. Afterward, the Pope and Ercia are heading to their carriage. On their way, Heron and another knight encounter them, and this makes Ercia feel perplexed at this point. She calmly thanks them for their service and asks them to step out of their way as she will be leaving the palace. Then, the Crown Prince pops out of nowhere with an ominous expression. He stops her from leaving, but she leaves no matter what. He refuses to let her leave behind her title as the Crown Princess, and if he cannot possess her, he believes he may as well destroy her by threatening her of death. Ugh! Seriously, what is wrong with you? He then accuses her of being a threat to the royal family, by the moment she leaves behind her title as a princess of a ducal family for the temple and the Crown Princess title. Hence, he threatens to kill her as long as she's out of the palace grounds. Whether she's eating, laughing, or dancing outside the palace, he will try to end her life. The Pope attempts to have control of the event as he steps forward, but Ercia hinders him from stepping further and bravely stands up for herself in front of the prince. She dares to leave him, and the palace guard is astounded. This scene makes the Pope even prouder as he smirks under his cloak while they run away from the crowd of guards. As a result of her provocation, the carriage that she's supposed to travel in is blasted into flames, burnt to pieces as expected from the prince, who is evidently messing with Ercia the moment she steps out of the imperial palace. Since the Pope expected such a matter, he shows Ercia an almost run-down carriage that is barely standing, but she has nothing to complain about, so she has to ride the carriage back to the duchy. Meanwhile, she talks about the peasantry being kind and warm-hearted, despite being the dirty workers of the royal family. Her mother is temperamental, but is always so kind if not provoked. Her father is otherwise calm, but would kill for his family, and her brother? A warrior. The Pope asks her if she misses them, which makes her feel giddy to know she's meeting them soon. Little does she know that as she travels back home, her parents are working deliberately to uphold their duties for their family. In the city, her father sits nonchalantly inside their carriage as her mother shoves a knife at a knight and another in the middle of the pouring rain, leaving no trace of suspicions towards the Peasantria family. She then smudges off the blood and mud from her gown and leaves with her husband shortly. Girl, that is what you call power! She looks so cool with that dagger, you know? The Pope and Ercia arrive at her family's home. The servants welcome him generously and with respect while he waits for his carriage to arrive to fetch him. Upon entering the mansion, she rushes to her room and flops in her bed to get some rest. But the presence of the Pope in her room just now catches her attention. She worries that the maids may have caused him inconvenience, so she asks him about it. He reassures her that they're all welcoming of him greatly. She seems to be a little less guarded in her home than how she is at the palace. She then straightens up by his tease, but he laughs about it with her anyway. Then, he tells her to sit down as he forgot to tell her something important. He asks her to show closer affection to each other to make people believe them more. She agrees with this offer, but sets her boundaries limitedly. The Pope, as stubborn as he is, asserts to call her by her name. Ercia, like how her family calls her, justifying his words with the fact that the two of them will also be a family soon. He calls her by her name, and she somehow feels a little thumpy feeling in her heart as she blushes like a little happy girl. In the meantime, the prince is doing his royal tasks and is writing a letter when his eyes navigate towards Ercia's hair that he cut that night. At the sight of it, he fumes in anger, but before he can even do something volatile, a servant knocks on his door to tell him that the emperor calls for his presence. In the hall, Alfredo stands beside the emperor's chair while the emperor throws his chalice of wine towards his brother, the crown prince. The emperor is outraged by the failure of the crown prince to keep Ercia inside the palace and why Ercia plans to side with the temple. The emperor takes him as a shameless fool and expresses his anger and disappointment towards the crown prince. He calms himself down and orders another task to his son. Before his orders, he clearly states that the ducal family of the Pesantrias is already on the move, so he has to do something before they can. He commands him to find out why the temple has taken Ercia away, and to find Lady Luthella and bring her back to the palace. However, if the crown prince fails to do this job again, he has to wager his title as the crown prince. This means that Alfredo will have the chance to be crowned, and the crown prince will step down. Alfredo realizes that this is what Ercia was talking about when she said he could regain his honor. Yet again, he does not want to compete with his brother at first, but now he is already considering it while the crown prince fights for his title with his life. Afternoon comes, and Ercia takes her afternoon rest from the long travel she's been through a while back. What awoke her was a nightmare that made her sweat and fear immensely. She checks if she is needed in her own room, and she then rings her bell. She orders the maids to prepare some clothes for the guest and to escort him to the dining room. During dinner, the Pope seems to be wearing her brother's clothes temporarily. In her mind, he actually looks good in those clothes. She then opens a conversation about food preferences with the Pope. Moments later, the Duke arrives. Ercia is quite taken aback by her brother's arrival when he immediately barges into the dining hall worried sick. She calms him down as he compliments her hairstyle, but then the Pope giggles at the sight of the siblings. The Duke is about to be furious upon seeing his clothes on a priest, but Ercia discusses things with him separately. During their private discussion, the Duke thinks that perhaps she may get hurt again if she plans on taking the same steps as how she did with the prince, and may end up losing the love game. She assures her brother that she is now wiser than before, and with that, she shares her plans to join forces with the Pope. Afterward, she finds the Pope scanning through the shelves to find a good book to read. She interrupts him and speaks of her discussion with her brother. From the Pope's perspective, it seems like Ercia is already reluctant with their deal, but allows her to speak at her own pace. She then fires her questions at him. She asks the Pope about his true intentions of choosing her as the best potential for the saint position. She asks him if perhaps she is indeed the chosen one, or not. And then she asks the Pope if he was the one orchestrating all of this with the Oracle, the Empire, and the Temple. He feels like she's overturning their deal, but she asks him respectfully for an answer. Being trusted as a high delegate of God, it is within the Pope's power to manipulate his words and decisions based on his own accord. So the Pope answers Ercia clearly that she is not the chosen one of the Oracle, and this gives her relief from the possibility of holding firm to a lie like she used to, and in return failed her immensely. As she asks His Highness about her role as a saintess, he informs her again that a saintess's role is a symbolic figure that caters to the people to believe and trust divine power through her and the Pope. If so, the Pope assures her that she has nothing else to do while crossing his fingers from behind. He continues to mention that she only has to stay by his side, and he will provide and give her everything that he has. Bro of Divinity, you are one sly human being, I tell you. This gives him a good deal of mental rest to Ercia as she bites into the Pope's words and believes him. Well, I think at least you can rest now. For now. And just like that, she dozes off to sleep, but is awakened by a nightmare. She tries to read a book and see if she can use it as her mode to sleep properly, but the books in her room aren't really good ones to help her sleep. Rather, most are about the Empire's history or war strategies. A few moments later, she steps towards her drawer and takes the Empress's letter about the sickness. She thinks perhaps the Empress is being poisoned, but by whom? She then realizes that since the Empress has long been out of shape, this may be orchestrated by the Emperor himself. But then again, she no longer has anything to do with it since she's about to side with the temple. With that said, she leaves the duchy to go to town and buy some more books. But on her way home, she stops to observe the beauty of the clock tower that she built. A guy selling figurines of the clock tower enlightens Ersia that the clock tower has indeed contributed well even in his sales. Inevitably, she buys one figurine to cherish her accomplishment while she's still a worker at the palace. In her heart, she knows she wants what's best for the people. In the duchy, she finds the Pope reading a book and tells him of her heart's desire for the people. Despite her human foolishness, he believes that she will find her way to him. The Pope philosophically tells her that no matter what she does, she needs him and will come to him. Hence, the place for her is already prepared by the Pope, and that is by his side. The following morning, while Ersia was preparing, she noticed a familiar jewelry box and asked one of the maids who had given it to her. The maids inform her that it's from her guest, who accompanied her. When she heard this, Ersia realized that it might be from Azrael. Thus, she asked one of her maids to hand her the jewelry inside because she would wear it today. When Ersia is almost done wearing the jewelry, she asks the maid about her brother and Azrael's whereabouts. The maid informs her that they're having a meal together. Ersia faces the maid and looks at her shockingly. She thinks it's not a good idea for her brother and Azrael to be alone in one room. Ersia remarks that the maid should have woken her up earlier, but the maid responds that both men don't want their sleep to be disturbed. Knowing this, Ersia calms down and tells the maid she will also head to the dining room. Upon arriving at the dining tables, Ersia is surprised and confused to learn that her brother and Azrael are getting along. As they eat, the two men talk about theology and the church. After Ersia's brother announces that he'll be leaving, he jokes that he will attend the church. Alone, Azrael compliments Ersia that the relic ring is perfect for her, and that he'll merely return it to its rightful owner. Hearing this, Ersia realizes that Azrael is hiding something from her. Thus, she must not let her guard down. She confronts Azrael and tells him that since they have a business relationship, she will mind her business as long as she benefits from him. Next, in the office, Ersia's brother informs her that their parents will be arriving soon, but it might take a little while since they'll be stopping somewhere. She knows this after Ersia's maid informs her that Lady Lortella has returned to the palace. She then instructs the maid to investigate the Empress and Azel's whereabouts and adds that unknown persons must not enter their mansion. Meanwhile, Ernos angrily reprimands Nivea for leaving the palace unannounced and tells her how responsible her behavior is because of the damage she has done. Ernos then compares Nivea to Ersia and says that Ersia will never do such a stupid act. Hearing this, Nivea is embarrassed and silently cries. Well, she deserves it. The following day, Ersia browsed the letter at her brother's office. Minutes later, her brother arrives and notices. She then comes to send her some documents too, since handling paperwork is her expertise. Hearing this, Ersia's brother jokes that his position might be in danger if he does that. Ersia replies that if he's that scared, he needs to find a fiancé to secure his position. He also states that if he doesn't have any relationship, then other people might think that he's gay, and her brother only smiles and announces to her that he'll be leaving to get more information. Next, while Ersia is walking along the hallway, she notices Azrael's door room slightly open. When she looks into it, she's stunned by how handsome Azrael looks while praying. But she quickly composes herself upon realizing that Azrael notices her presence. Azrael then invites Ersia for a walk in the garden. As they walk around the garden, Ersia asks Azrael when he will return to church, since the church may not allow long vacations. Azrael replies that it's fine, since it's been a long time since he's been on vacation. Afterward, Ersia suddenly sneezes, and Azrael quickly tells Ersia to return to the house to avoid catching a cold. As he pushes her towards the house, Azrael already notices the assassin spying on them. Alone, Azrael starts to warn the assassin that it's a sin to point a sword at a priest, and that killing him brings divine punishment. The assassin then replies that nothing will happen if he simply hands Ersia to them, but Azrael quickly disagrees and starts to fight back. As Azrael fights the assassins, Ersia arrives with guards who quickly stop the assassins from attacking and fleeing. Well, Ersia darling, you are keen for also noticing the assassins and acting innocently to get help. After that, Azrael compliments Ersia on her quick thinking, and Ersia tells him not to hesitate to ask for help from her in the future. A few minutes later, the maid suddenly appears and stressingly informs Ersia that Rias has returned but is wounded. Seeing how serious her brother's state is, Ersia composes herself and starts to order the people what to do after the knight reports to Ersia that they were attacked at the informant's place, since they might know that that place is under the jurisdiction of the Duke. The knight also adds that there were 6 casualties during that attack. Afterward, Azrael approached and held Ersia's hand while telling her it was his turn to help her heal. Thus, they proceed to Rias's room, and Azrael uses his power to heal Ersia's brother's wounds. While Azrael is healing Rias, he comments that only one person is capable of sending skilled assassins. Hearing this, Ersia realizes that it is Ernos' doing. Next, while they're walking, Ersia thanks Azrael for treating her brother. Azrael then comments that Ersia looks relieved now, since she looks fierce after seeing her brother injured. Ersia then asks Azrael if she can ask one more favor, to heal the 2 severely wounded knights, which Azrael agrees to. As Ersia accompanies Azrael, a man informs her that Rias is awake. Azrael tells her that he's okay if she visits her brother and leaves him. When Ersia interviews her brother about what the assassins look like and whether he extracted something from one of them, her brother only tells her that they all wear black clothes and that they quickly kill themselves without getting a chance to extract information. Hearing this, Ersia is convinced that these are all Ernos' doing. She then promises herself that she will not forgive those who harm her brother and their knights, and adds that she will show them what they dared to meddle with. Go on, girl, show them who the boss is! After hearing his sister Ersia's plan, Ria says he will support her and trusts her choices. He adds that the Crown Prince is the one in a dangerous situation, not them. Later that night, while Ersia was sitting at the bench, Azrael silently approached her, catching her by surprise. Settling around, Ersia started to share with Azrael that this morning she felt powerless. Hearing this, Azrael told him that humans are all helpless and that they can do nothing about it. Ersia then looks at Azrael and realizes she doesn't know much about him. Thus, Azrael starts to tease her by asking her if she's curious and wants to know about him. He tells her that from now on, she needs to address him by his name, which Ersia does, making him smile. Afterward, Azrael shares that the former pope raised him since his mother and father died, and that he's the same age as Ernos. Ersia also asks why he wants to be a pope, but Azrael starts to change the subject, which Ersia also notices but doesn't force Azrael to answer. Next, when they are in front of Ersia's room, Azrael tells her to rest well, but when she's inside her room, she quickly gets a book, which Azrael notices. Thus, he asks her if she has difficulty sleeping, to which Ersia agrees. Azrael then gives her his coat and explains that robes embedded with divine power are one of a kind. After Azrael moves closer to Ersia, while suggesting that there are other ways he can help her get to sleep, Ersia throws Azrael out of her room, which he only smiles about. Meanwhile, one of the assassins reports to Ernos that they failed to get Ersia because of one priest with white hair and a robe embedded with church symbols. Hearing this, Ernos knows that he is pertaining to the Pope, making him more angry and jealous. Ain't no way little boy Ernos is going to be jealous when he tries to kill her! The next day, Ersia visits her brother, who's already moving and preparing to work. She then tells Rias that he needs to rest more, but Rias assures her that he is fine, and then hands her the list of people joining the Coronation Festival. The Coronation Festival is the largest party anyone can attend during the off-peak season. While scanning the names of those who will attend, Ersia sees a young lady with Count Eden's name on it, and asks her brother for information about her. The young lady of Count Eden is Sylvia Eden, who was once praised for her beauty, grace, and nobility in past social circles. However, after her broken engagement, she begged and desperately clung to her fiancé, hiding herself from everyone since. Afterwards, Ersia, Rias, and Azrael are having an awkward meal together. Since Ersia can't handle this, she quickly finishes her meal and announces that she's heading out. However, Azrael also tells her he is done and wants to continue their walk yesterday, while asking Rias if he wants to join them, which Rias also accepts, confusing Ersia more. At the garden, Ersia starts to admire how well-maintained and loved the garden is. Azrael then asks Ersia if she wants to see something interesting. After he makes the flower, he picks it up, which amazes Ersia. She never knew you could do something like that with divine power. Azrael then hands her the flower as a gift, but she states it can't bloom again once it's plucked. He replies that this flower is different while walking ahead of them. Rias suddenly suggests a boat ride to them, but Ersia tries to decline due to yesterday's incident. Rias reminds her that they must show they can't be quickly brought down. The brother is so hot. LOL, I love the priest too. Afterward, Ersia approached the two men waiting for her near the carriage, and as soon as she was near them, she extended one of her hands. Because of this, both men opened her hands, but Ersia chose her brother's hand, leaving Azrael smiling. What do you expect, Asriel? You're only her fiancé, and that is her brother. Next, Ercia remembers Asriel's robe in her room and tells him to wear it to hide his identity. Thus, she quickly tells the maid to get it. Upon arriving at the boating dock, the ladies instantly admire and gush about how handsome Rias is. Luckily, they only notice that a priest is with them, not the Pope, making Ercia smile since that was originally her plan. Minutes later, when they are near the lake, Ercia suddenly tells Rias that she will only be joining Asriel, and that Rias can stay and talk to the ladies, which surprises and confuses Rias, who can't believe his sister left him to be with other ladies. Next, while they're boating, Ercia begins to realize how calming it is and why the maids told her that in the past she loved boating. She also shares with Asriel that she has already forgotten her favorite memory. Asriel then tells Ercia that today is his favorite memory and that he would like to do it again with her in the future, to which Ercia replies that she'll think about it. Afterward, when Asriel is helping Ercia get off the boat suddenly moves, making her stumble and hit her face at Asriel's chest. Oh, it looks like a spark is starting with these two. Their moment stops when they notice the ladies are desperately screaming and running away from the assassins who are attacking them. Ercia quickly sees that her brother is already fighting the assassins and trying to protect the ladies. But then Rias suddenly appears in his previous position, making Ercia scared and terrified. Because of this, she is caught off guard when an assassin is behind her and about to attack her, leaving her with little time to draw her dagger. Luckily, Asriel quickly appears and saves Ercia. Asriel then worriedly asks Ercia if she's hit and if she's okay, which Ercia assures him she is. When the air is about to fly through Asriel's hood, Ercia quickly stops it, thus keeping Asriel's hair hidden. Oh my gosh! Everyone is running for their lives and they're in their little bubble! Afterward, the commotion is contained when the Imperial Guards arrive at the scene. They proceed to approach them, and Ercia suggests that Asriel change his dirty shoes. They also brought extra clothes. When Ercia and Rias wait for Asriel to finish changing, a man approaches them. They thank Rias for saving his daughter. Seeing the man, Ercia realizes they're from the house of Marquisate, who owns the largest territory in the Empire and is also part of the upper class. The family is famous for being a bigwig in the eastern region. Ercia also realizes that because of the incident, many will know that the Marquisate family is in debt to the Pheasantera. Next, alone again, Ercia asks Rias if he's already achieved his plan, to which he nods. He also adds that he's not worried about Ercia since she's with Asriel, and knows that Asriel will protect her, making Ercia more confused. So, this was their plan all along? Afterward, Asriel exits a carriage and tells Rias to change his clothes. While doing all this, Ercia only stares at Asriel since she feels betrayed or confused about Asriel's real identity. Asriel then approaches Ercia and notices that her hands are covered in blood, which makes him comment that he didn't finish it neatly this time. Because of this statement, Ercia is confused but remains straight while commenting that Asriel handled the swords well during the fight. Asriel replies that as he rises to a higher position, he needs to learn to protect himself while innocently smiling back at Ercia. Ercia then thinks it is one of his fake smiles and realizes that if she tries to ask Asriel more, he will dig deeper into her inner self. Thus, she decides to remain quiet, but still feels angry even if they only have an arranged relationship. Later that night, while Rias is teaching Ercia how to handle a sword, he is still confused about why she's more eager to learn about swordsmanship. Ercia explains that Rias and Aisha are not with her every time to protect her. She again tells her brother to draw his sword, and they will train again. But Rias tells Ercia that it is already late and they must rest. She does not listen and tries to attack Rias again, but is quickly disarmed by Rias. Rias then helps Ercia get up while she comments that she already knows she can't defeat him, who earned merit in the war. Rias smiles at Ercia and adds that even if his shoulders are injured, he can easily take Alfredo down. After hearing Alfredo's name, Ercia confirms to Rias that he is referring to the crybaby and sweet Alfredo. Rias nods and informs Ercia that Alfredo was called the Bloody Demon during the war, but Ercia still can't believe it. Meanwhile, Ernos is in the study room by himself at the Imperial Palace, but he's annoyed to see Fredo barging into the room and telling him that the Emperor also sent him to attend the lesson. Also, because of this, Ernos arrogantly reminds Alfredo that they are different from birth and not to get his hopes up. And when Ernos is about to leave, Alfredo suddenly asks Ernos what Ernos will do if he aspires to be a crown prince. Yeah, strike back, Alfredo! The next day, Ernos still thinks about the heated confrontation he and Alfredo encountered. Ernos remembers how Alfredo openly tells him that he aspires to become a crown prince someday, and that he already hates Alfredo even while Ercia is still in the palace. Ernos realizes that Alfredo has started to grow a backbone and is brave enough to talk back to him. However, Ernos still manages to threaten him by reminding Alfredo that when Ernos becomes the emperor, it will be the end of Alfredo being a prince since he will kill him. Ernos thought they were stopping when his butler informed him that Nivea didn't appear during breakfast, and that she didn't respond when they tried to knock on her door. Knowing this, Ernos tells the butler he will check on Nivea. Meanwhile, Nivea is in her room with Aisha, who is washing her feet. While she is looking at Aisha washing her feet, she remembers how Ernos compares her with Ersia. Thus, she then asks Aisha what if she and Ersia are the same, but Aisha explains to Nivea that they are different since Nivea talks to him, who's a lowlife. At the same time, Ersia only passes by him, which makes Nivea glad. But then Nivea is terrified to see a furious Ernos approaching her. Ernos, angry, squeezes her arm while furiously reprimanding her for not following the schedule that a crown princess needs to follow. Ernos suddenly notices Aisha in the room, so he quickly orders the guards to throw Aisha out of the palace, while commenting on how Nivea can be irresponsible for inviting a guy inside her room, which might create rumors and stain his name. Next, Ernos threatens Nivea that the incident should not occur again because her family will not escape unscratched. Meanwhile, Azriel is enjoying himself while Ersia is angry because she can't win the chess game with him. However, as the rounds pass, she begins to win, thus making her happy, and Azriel still smiles even though he's losing. I think Azriel is losing on purpose to make Ersia happy. Afterward, Ersia is shocked to learn that Aisha is outside their mansion because Ernos expelled him from the palace. Noticing that it's a serious matter, Azriel excuses himself. After Azriel leaves them, the maid informs Ersia that Aisha is expelled from the palace because Ernos saw Nivea and Aisha together in Nivea's room. After hearing this, Ersia starts to worry about Aisha's safety. Still, the maid explains that Aisha is staying at Nivea's house. With this, Ersia realizes that Aisha is seducing Nivea, which has worked. Afterwards, Ersia tells the maid again to continue spying on Nivea. That rainy afternoon, Ersia and Rias were in the town and witnessed Viscount Mara being hanged, since it is said that he coveted other nobles' territories and had taken it too far. After witnessing the execution, Ersia and Rias ride their carriage. As they are traveling, Ersia smiles after noticing that the slum improvement project is already complete, and then tells Rias that they should also send more grains this time. Noticing how passionate Ersia is, Rias asks her why she didn't show her face to the people since they'll surely praise her. Hearing the word praise, Ersia teases Rias that he might be planning to be a priest, which Rias laughs off. If Rias does, a lot of ladies will cry! Meanwhile, Ernos is furious after learning about Viscount Mara's execution, especially not knowing about it. The butler tells him that the emperor himself decided it because of the rumors spreading about the royal family. That night, Ersia informs Azriel that she wants to hold a trial against the royal family with the temple's help since, with her family's wealth and the temple working together, they'll have a power comparable to that of the royal family. However, Ernos is also aware of their plan. She adds that the temple must be protected since that will be the first thing Ernos will attack. While in his office, Rias gets a visit from his butler, who notices the master had worked until the late hours again. The butler urges him to write to his parents, mainly to alleviate their worry. Rias does so, but his letter is mainly all about Ersia, whom he lovingly calls Sia, writing how good she looks with shorter hair, akin to when she was younger. He also writes that Azriel, the Pope, is still living with them. Actually, Azriel and Sia get along quite well, with the two being friendly, sharing a meal, and they share quite a competitive rivalry in chess. Although it's only Sia who's determined to win against Azriel, who looks tired of the game and was even willing to fix their previous match in Sia's favor before. Anyway, Rias writes how Sia smiles a bit more now than when she was at the Imperial Palace. And meanwhile, Rias's mother also smiles with joy upon reading her son's letter, even if it's full of updates about Sia. Regardless of this sweet moment, her husband asks if she's sure she'll visit the Imperial Palace alone, of all things. She assures him, and with him noting that his son hasn't changed at all, Rias's father continues reading his letter at his wife's behest. For Sia, she's sitting in her room, relaxing as a glimmer of moonlight shines through the windows. However, she notices the smell of blood that's getting stronger by the minute, and so she opens the curtains to find Azriel, the Pope, hooded and reeking of blood. That's just as Rias is finishing the contents of his letter, that although Sia promised not to try in any relationships, he still hopes for her to find someone she can be with. A surprised Azriel surmises that he must have chosen the wrong room, hence his arrival on Sia's window. Still, Sia asks whether the Pope was hurt, remarking his smell of blood. Rather jokingly, Azriel also asks why she assumed he was the one who's hurt and not the person who attacked someone. Of course, Sia believes that a holy man could do no such thing, so Azrael admits that there was a fire at the temple. Not a big one, but a disaster caused by some commotion, hence he was rushing back there. Sia notes how sudden this all is, but the Pope argues that since he's leaving first thing anyway, it actually isn't. Sia gets a sad look on her face, asking if the next time they meet will be at the founding festival, and if there's any need for them to not see each other then. Azrael can't give an honest answer, only bidding Sia to not work too much and for her to get some sleep. With that, Azrael vanishes into the night. The following morning, the butler is shocked to see Ersia up working so early. He informs her of Rias's invitation for a meal, but she declines. Anyway, she's focusing on befriending a once popular turned recluse lady in court, Sylvia Eden. Her mind doesn't change when Rias himself visits her and informs her of Azrael's incoming departure. He offers that they see him off, but Sia remains adamant in her refusal. And so it's only Rias who sees the Pope off. And though initially hopeful that Sia had come anyway, Azrael learns that it was only a maid tasked by Sia to return to him a robe. Realizing she won't see him, Azrael smiles and departs soon after. Meanwhile, Sia prepares the estate after their guest's departure, asking the maids to clean any trace of Azrael's stay there. Once again, she demonstrates how she won't trust anyone. But her face, filled with a saddened longing, may tell a different story. Rias notices the maids busy cleaning as he and Ersia are sharing a meal. Not wishing to push this further, Rias instead asks what made Ersia so busy that morning. So she explains her recent interest in Lady Eden, her family, and the family who had broken off her engagement. It seems that the Eden and Marquise families had collaborated and sought the Assassin's Guild, perhaps to take advantage of Lady Eden. Ersia surmises that the Eden family, who values honor, feels ashamed of Sylvia's recent engagement fiasco, that this is their solution. God, what a bunch of despicable people they are! Curiously, Rias asks if Ersia's interest in the matter is because she feels sorry for Sylvia. But even if she doesn't know why, all she's decided is to meet her, saying to the skeptical Rias that she needs to see the lady in question before her untimely demise. And so Ersia goes to the Eden estate in secret. Along the way, she hears some ladies at court, doing what they do best, I say, gossiping about her being more productive, helping the community in comparison to Sylvia being hidden away by herself. They don't know it, but of course Sylvia hears this, because she's hiding just in an earshot's distance. The gossip only stops when Ersia forces her way through the crowd, angering the ladies. Sylvia dashes away, and though she doesn't care much for the ladies complaining, Ersia introduces herself, much to the ladies' chagrin. And so Ersia finds Sylvia almost too late, as the latter's being harassed by assassins. Sylvia knows the reason for this, at first lamenting how her ex-fiancé could do something like this. But sensing her doom, she steels herself and tries to take the attackers down with her. Of course, she gets overpowered, so Ersia intervenes, having her maids Lilia and Sober attack the assassins. Ersia helps the distraught lady up, even saving her from an assassin's desperate swing. And there, Ersia formally introduces herself to Sylvia, noting how she herself knows her being there is a bit surprising. Sylvia gives her thanks to Ersia quite formally, so the latter asks the former to call her by her first name. Anyway, Sylvia promises to repay Ersia's kindness, so she promises to inform her father of Ersia's deeds when she gets home. However, Ersia stops her from doing so, as even though Sylvia knows her ex-fiancé ordered the assassins to attack her, there's one other person. Ersia gives Sylvia the letter her own father wrote pertaining to his daughter's assassination. Naturally, Sylvia's distraught. After some time, Ersia asks what Sylvia plans to do. When she says she's literally all alone right now with nothing, Ersia offers to have her stay at her estate. Morning soon comes, and Sylvia, still reeling from yesterday's events, in spite of her ex and her father's betrayal, she finds her situation turned upside down, making her think this is all a dream. As she gets out of her room, she encounters Rias with nothing but a robe on, and both are ashamed and surprised. A flustered Rias goes to Ersia about why he isn't aware of their guest, so she tells her brother of her offer to Sylvia. She asks him to refrain from wearing only robes from now on, but what irks him is he could have done so if she told him of Sylvia in the first place. Later, all three share a meal together, with Rias being extra courteous to make up for his blunder earlier. Anyway, Sylvia's extremely grateful, so much so that she says she'll do anything to repay Ersia's kindness. Ersia accepts, but asks Sylvia to eat up first, noting how thin she is. Afterwards, Ersia calls Sylvia to the kitchen, where she reveals that the help she wants from her is to help her bake a lot of bread that they'll give to the slums, along with some grain. The two toil away for some time, and they manage to do it. Airsia doesn't hesitate to invite Sylvia to come with her when she delivers the goods to the people, amusing Sylvia that Airsia herself visits the slums to help. The eerie poverty of the slums leaves Sylvia speechless for a moment, until a boy reaches for the bread she's holding. She willingly gives it and sees him happily retreating to his family. This is the scene for everyone they've helped today, and Airsia is making sure they ask her for anything else. Then, Airsia takes Sylvia clothes shopping. Of course, the modest Sylvia protests from the start, especially since Airsia is offering to buy her all the clothes she tried on, along with accessories and shoes. Sylvia warns that Airsia might go broke if she does that for her. But in reality, that's impossible for the daughter of the wealthiest family in the empire. Anyway, Airsia gets informed that the temple fire has been controlled, so they make their way home. The carriage ride between the two ladies at first is a silent one, as Airsia is a little busy. Nonetheless, Sylvia thanks Airsia, who reveals she did all that to get Sylvia's mind off of her troubles, something she herself is all too familiar with. Regardless, Sylvia senses that's not all there is to it that caused Airsia to help her. So Airsia decides to be honest about her plans to have Sylvia back in her influential status, as she can be instrumental when they're going to hold a trial against the royal family. This shocks Sylvia, and asks if she's going to be sent back to her father to gain her family's favor if she refuses. Airsia won't do such a thing, promising not to force her into doing anything. Sylvia admits not knowing what to do, so Airsia suggests that she find another reason for living, be it revenge against her ex or her family, urging her not to make the same mistake she did. Sylvia smiles in response. Meanwhile, at the temple, Azriel had written a letter to Airsia before attending a meeting. Airsia is in her office by the time the head maid delivers Azriel's letter. In it, he gives news about the temple and deduces that she was waiting for him to write. He had given a lot of thought about why she didn't say goodbye when he left, and he shared his realization. He's the one who wasn't being honest, the one with one card hidden. He says even though it's late, he wants to lay it all bare and ask for forgiveness. If it's accepted by the lady, Azriel only asks for a chance to play chess with her again. It would seem that him being honest is all it takes to melt Airsia's coldness towards him. Oh girl, you've been stricken by love! Immediately, Airsia asks the head maid about the chessboard and couldn't hide her delight when apparently it had been saved from the cleaning she ordered a while back. Right now, with a smile on her face, Airsia is happy with just them being honest with each other, even just a little bit. However, Azriel's experiencing some trouble at the temple meeting. The men are arguing Azriel's decision to publicize his predecessor Pope's will. One reminds them of the royal family's abduction of the Lady of the Oracle, and they had just helped her back. So how could they tell Airsia that she's the aforementioned lady? All the arguing proves Azriel's point, that this is a significant matter, though he asks the other priest to not refer to Airsia as an object. Though Airsia is unaware of it as of now, they all agree the fallout of that happening will be immense. Some argue to hide it, some to consider being careful as the truth being revealed too quickly is even worse. Some argue that their organization is only breaking free from the royal family, from their horrors of forcing them to kill people of the slums, so they can't go back. But Azriel explains that Airsia wants nothing but peace for the empire. With her, now's the time to defeat the royal family. So he asks for the will, but a horrified priest informs him that it had been stolen during the fire. Next, we see the royal family and Airsia's ex-fiancé furious that her name is on the will. The crown prince demands an answer from Rutella as to why her name isn't on the will declaring the Lady of the Oracle, and Airsia is. Her explanation starts with her sick baby brother and how the temple approached her to help him, and in exchange, she'll be part of their plan. Pertaining to her pink hair, it's because Rutella's family is of a foreign descent, and pink hair is common in her country. The prince is already angry, but upon realizing he's been played by the temple and thinking of how it went down with Airsia, his rage is enough to crush the glass in his hand. Regardless, Rutella becomes the target of his fury. He muses how to deal with her, a lady who happened to have pink hair used as the temple's pawn. He menacingly considers killing her brother, but the lady begs on her knees some more, so he orders Rutella to return to her family's estate. Just as she leaves, the crown prince is informed of another pressing issue. His mother, the empress, might pass away at any moment. Meanwhile, Airsia gets roused from sleep by Azriel's sudden arrival. He came to inform her of the former pope's missing will. True enough, he is there to reveal everything, such as Airsia being the Lady of the Oracle. But his mind wanders first to their first meeting as kids, when she comforted him about his different look, saying his unique quality makes him chosen. Before he could talk about that, and Airsia being the Lady of the Oracle, they get interrupted by the sudden news. The Empress has indeed passed away. The funeral for the Empress had been a simple one. Per her wish, her body will be returned to her family. When a member of the royal family dies, they impose some restrictions, such as no banquets, no laughs, and wearing black during the mourning period. Aercia attends with Asriel, who notes the former's sadness at the Empress's passing, and Aercia shares her mentor-like relationship with her. Asriel also comments on the irregularities of the Empress's death, such as never calling for a priest, and as far as he knows, she wasn't that sick of her illness. In fact, Aercia suspects that it wasn't an illness. In a flashback scene, she remembers the Empress as always being sickly, so the Emperor had her drink herbal tea for it. During a conversation where the Empress warns her about the Crown Prince, using her and the Emperor's relationship as an example, the Empress suddenly collapses after drinking the tea. Aercia is about to share this when suddenly she comes face to face with the Crown Prince, who sees her holding hands with Asriel after he had comforted her. Of course, Aercia and Asriel distance themselves from him, leaving to go to the garden. There, Asriel asks about Aercia's well-being, and she reveals that she's fine. Their conversation is about to go back to their topic the other night, about Asriel's first meeting with Aercia and his intended confession of the contents of the former Pope's will, when suddenly, the Crown Prince appears and grabs Aercia away from Asriel. She protests, and Asriel warns the prince too, but he's adamant. The prince immediately proclaims that Aercia is the Lady of the Oracle, and that the temple, particularly Asriel, had driven the wedge between them so the temple could keep her themselves. God, a major shocker leaving a mark in everyone's faces. And what's more, the prince got to say it first and not Asriel. While all this is happening, Sylvia takes a walk throughout Aercia's estate. There she finds Rias, also alone, just sitting in the pathway bench. He invites her for a talk, mainly asking how it's been staying with Aercia. Surprisingly, they both compare Aercia to water. Oh, I see another romantic ship sailing. However, they see Aercia differently. For Sylvia, she's like water when her bravery allowed her to take a blade for her, since nothing can ever cut water. For Rias, he thinks Aercia is a bit fragile despite her strong demeanor. For once, he wishes she would cry and express her sadness more. Unfortunately, not everyone's having a swell time. The scene shifts to Aercia, who's still in shock about what the Crown Prince had said. The two look at Asriel to tell the truth, and for this one, his silence is his answer. Aercia, not believing that Asriel could lie like that, asks him directly, but again, his silence confirms it. The Crown Prince sees the opportunity to attack, berating Asriel as a hypocrite man, helping only under the guise of kindness, when in reality, he's a manipulator. He also mentions he's nothing to do with Aercia and him. Asriel doesn't defend himself, but questions if Aercia will like this outcome. Laughing in response, the Crown Prince remarks Aercia has been preparing to become the Empress ever since. He even mocks Asriel as the last pope of a dying temple who had threatened the Empire's power. The Crown Prince suggests he go back to his place. So immediately, Asriel rushes to Aercia, but unfortunately, her eyes are colder than ever. Even when he apologizes, Aercia's mere response is that they're only in a contract. Thus, trust and emotions aren't part of that. Memories of happier times start to shatter as Aercia says she never received nor given any trust from their contractual relationship, leaving Asriel broken and hurt. Aercia turns her back coldly, but Asriel again tries to apologize. He had thought she was happy not being the Crown Princess, being free. He remembers her smile, but now that's nowhere to be seen in her face. Still, Asriel tries to say that he always planned to tell her. But this only disgusts Aercia more, who starts to recount every opportunity Asriel could have told her the truth, but didn't. She guesses he didn't want her to find out, but before bursting in anger, she turns away again. Defeated, Asriel can only ask if she wants to go back to her old life. She replies yes, blaming Asriel's intervention for her not remaining the Crown Princess in the first place. She doesn't even call him by his name anymore. God, they're really falling apart. So sad. When she returns home, immediately, Aercia hugs Rias and apologizes to her brother for making the same mistake again, despite his warnings. But this time, she knows her mistake, saying she knows how weak and stupid she had been. Meanwhile, Asriel sits alone with only a few candles, the look of a man who's lost something important. He wonders where it all went wrong. Prepare for a backstory, guys. Of course, he starts with his hair. Because of it, he'd been left at the temple as a child since he's predetermined to have divine power. Even his name was because of the priest that found him. Apparently, Asriel's even more special than the rest, having more divine power than usual. This made him a favorite of the Pope, who took him under his wing, but also the subject of jealousy for the others. This extended so much that during their visit to the imperial palace as future priests of the temple, some kids would beat him up regularly. It had occurred so much that even Asriel's sick of it and resigned his fate. That is, until Ersia. During one visit to the imperial estate where Asriel's getting beaten up again, Ersia's arrival, along with some guards, managed to put a stop to it. Even then, you could tell Asriel sees Ersia differently. The young Ersia, with dazzling, sparkling beauty, stops a group of 3 young priests from bullying another young priest. The 3 run off, leaving Asriel behind. Ersia then extends a helping hand, offering him words of consolation. It's unfair to be bullied just because you're different from others, more special than others. Then it's Asriel's love at first sight. Asriel and Ersia have tea after the commotion, and Asriel offers an apology to Ersia for his rude behavior. The same goes with Ersia. Asriel wonders what would have happened if the Pope hadn't brought Ersia, the Lady of the Oracle, to the palace. Would he have seen her around the temple if she wasn't taken to the palace? All of these thoughts are then pushed to the back of his mind as he remembers that, with his current status, he can't be in love with her. Assuming he becomes a pope, he might have a chance to marry her, though. Thinking of these possibilities, he zones out of his conversation with Ersia. Snapping out of his thoughts again, he tries to have a proper conversation with her, asking her about her struggles being the crown princess and if she never thought of abandoning her duties. Hearing this, Ersia is caught off guard. Aside from him, nobody has ever asked a question like that before. If she would be given a chance to live another life other than being a crown princess, she would still choose to become the crown princess. Ersia is not the type of person who gives up on anything just because it's difficult. She may miss her family and went through many struggles, but she still likes her journey leading up to the present. Suddenly, their conversation comes to an end when the crown prince arrives. His arrival instantly brightens Ersia's mood, leaving Asriel at the table. The crown prince asks Ersia about Asriel, but she denies knowing him, recounting that she only met him by chance, leaving Asriel hurt. It turns out the crown prince had come only to invite Ersia to have lunch together. From afar, Asriel sees Ersia laughing and smiling with the crown prince. She's not like that with him. At the priest's dining table, Asriel is not in his usual self. His mind recalls his first encounter with Ersia. When he recalls all the awkward things that he made for Ersia, he forcibly cringes. Their dinner comes to a halt when a servant announces that the emperor wants to meet the pope and the young priests. They are all in shock, wondering what must have happened for them to be called by the emperor so abruptly. But despite their curiosity, they duly comply, even if they haven't finished their meals yet. At the palace, the emperor is enraged upon hearing that some priest, dared to ask the crown princess if she can leave her duties behind. Due to this, both the emperor and the pope have a standoff at the throne room. Enraged, the emperor accuses the pope of bringing the young priests in to lure the crown princess. But the pope denies all allegations. There's no proof that any of the children said those words to the crown princess. Hearing this, the emperor then calls his son and daughter, confronting them both. Oh, he's angry now. The crown prince recounts seeing Ersia at the temple talking to a young priest, but he can't recognize which child it is. The emperor suggests that Ersia should be the one to identify who she spoke with, his rageful words sending shivers down Asriel's spine. Ersia is annoyed, especially at the maids who escalated this issue. Before she identifies anyone, she's curious as to what the emperor plans to do with the culprit. Ruthless as ever, the emperor states that a punishment will be in order, tearing out the culprit's mouth. Hearing all this, Asriel becomes even more dreadful. He regrets coming to the palace and meeting Ersia in the first place. Finally, Ersia opens her mouth to speak, not to point out the culprit, but to admit something else. Ersia admits to meeting a child from the temple, but she denies having a conversation with that child. Her white lie shocks everyone. Asriel, the maids, even the emperor. But if Ersia herself says it, then the emperor won't argue. Instead, he turns his attention to the maids, ordering their removal for feeding him false information. The emperor then turns to the pope, trying to brush off the incident lightly. Almost a misunderstanding, he says. The pope nervously smiles, and he excuses himself and the children from the throne room. The crown prince and princess do likewise, but the emperor stops them. In lieu of everything, the emperor announces that Ersia isn't allowed to leave the palace, and she's not allowed to join the pheasant or duchy vacation. He says this all under the pretense of concern. She has no maids after all, but everyone knows better. Asriel finds it unfair that she's suffering just because she covered for him. He's about to set the record straight when suddenly Ersia speaks up, accepting the emperor's wishes without objections. You didn't have to go beyond that, petty emperor! Outside the throne room, the crown prince shows sympathy for a disheartened Ersia. He promises to help her in any way he can, but for now, she should go and rest. As Ersia heads back to her quarters, Azriel runs to her direction. He wants to apologize for everything, but he stops in his tracks when he notices her weeping. That was enough for Azriel's heart to drop. From that moment and onwards, Azriel sought strength and power. Oh, we're back to the present time. Even now in the present, as a full-grown adult, Azriel still keeps that memory with him. He worked hard all those years, even becoming the Pope just to reach Ersia. Lady Sylvia peeks at Ersia's room after all the revelations she witnessed. She looks at Ersia's brother waiting outside with cold eyes. It's already been 3 days since that happened. Her brother heard the news that Ersia's prophecy wasn't changed, and it was the Pope's doing. He enters her room, trying to have a proper conversation with her. He wants to know what Ersia is thinking up until now. Protective as he is, he wants to slay everyone behind the false prophecy. Ersia stops her brother, and she mourns for her sad fate. She had vowed not to give her heart again, but look at her now. She made the same mistake again. Her brother offers her words of comfort, following the longings of the heart that can never be wrong. No matter what happens, she'll always be the princess of the Pheasanter family. She'll always be his only sister. She belongs to their family, and nobody can ever tell them otherwise. Later, Lady Sylvia and Ersia's brother eat in a depressed ambiance, but unexpectedly someone wants to join them. It's Ersia. Seeing her up and about makes them both happy, and they immediately make a fuss. Before Ersia can take a seat, her brother tells her of a gift that's waiting for her in the reception room. Heading to the room, she finds Asha. Isn't Asha supposed to be with Urthella? Asha tells her that her brother decided to bring him back after finding out that the Oracle was being manipulated. He wasn't needed at the Marquise's house and was immediately called back. Now that Asha is back, he's determined to keep a close eye on Ersia, protecting her with his life. Cute. He acts like a cute little dog wagging his tail towards its owner. Admittedly, Ersia thought that Asha was exaggerating, but it turns out he's completely serious. He guards her 24/7. Day and night, Asha trails behind her, whether it's in the estate, the bathroom, or even outside. Asha continues to follow her around. Ersia then realizes that all of them, her brother, Lady Sylvia, and Asha, are going overboard. Out of the estate, Ersia takes shelter under a tree in the clearing, with Asha behind her, albeit from a distance. For the first time in a while, she finally breathes fresh air. Everyone might be too extra, but it doesn't feel too bad being taken care of. At least she feels valued. But her peace would soon be interrupted when the Pope appears from behind her in an attempt to explain his feelings to her. Asha blocks the Pope from getting any closer, but when Ersia allows it, Asha immediately complies, offering to wait in the carriage as the two talk. Left alone, Ersia starts the conversation with her being honest to the Pope, to Azriel. In a way, what he did wasn't betrayal or deception. After all, they were using each other for personal gain. Azriel never had any intention of using Ersia, but even if he tried to tell her, she still wouldn't listen. Ersia decides to use this opportunity to use him too. She may be the Lady of the Oracle, but that doesn't mean she can go back to the Crown Prince so easily and act like things remain the same. But she also can't give up her years of hard work. She doesn't want the Empire to fall into ruin after all. Listening to her, Azriel agrees to let her use him for as long as she wants. He will participate in the trial that will happen 3 days after the founding festival, 15 days from now, for both their sake. With nothing more to say, Ersia agrees and the two part ways shortly. Later that day, Ersia arrives at a weapon shop, ordering Asha to wait outside while she does business inside. The shop itself may be a weapon shop, but Ersia knows it's just a disguise. From what she recalls, the Empress's condition worsened until her death, meaning whatever was used on her would give the person a slow death, developing over time. Drugs, more likely. The same drugs would be at this weapon shop, no doubt. Ersia approaches the reception and she orders stocks and stocks of weapons. When she puts down a bag of riches, he immediately gets to work, heading to the back to collect the items. Left alone, she rummages through the shop's records, looking for any evidence. She comes across a name, Don Pavel, and it immediately rings a bell. Pavel is short for Pavelose, the Emperor's advisor. Like clockwork, Pavelose enters the shop, a menacing look on his face. Later that night, Pavelose reports his accidental meeting with Ersia. Seeing how she fled at the sight of him, Pavelose assumes she knows the truth about the Empress's death. Hearing this, the Emperor becomes enraged. They'll have to get rid of Ersia then. At the temple, a hooded man reports Ersia's movements to the Pope, Azriel. He reports of Ersia visiting a weapon shop, but it was the guest whom she encountered who seemed suspicious. Although the temple doesn't know it yet, the suspicious guest is none other than Pavlose. In her office, Ersia guesses Pavlose is working under the Emperor's orders. She tries to figure out what the motive the Emperor could have to kill his Empress. She needed to get to the bottom of this, and luckily, she brought back the shop's records. It would be useful evidence at the trial. A knock at the door is heard, and a maid enters, delivering a letter from Lady Rotella. Inside the envelope is a ring that Lady Rotella wore, the one the Crown Prince originally gave to Ersia. In her letter, Rotella expresses her desire to talk with Ersia about matters relating to the temple. How odd for Rotella to make such a request. Ersia turns to Asha, inquiring of Rotella's behavior the last time she was there. It turns out Rotella has become distant, and the Crown Prince ordered her not to leave the premises of the palace. Standing up, she immediately orders for a carriage bound for the palace. At the palace, the Emperor and the Crown Prince talk about Lady Rotella. Apparently, the Crown Prince has sent her back to the Marquise. Hearing this, the Emperor shares his sentiments. All of those ladies of the Oracle, it would be better to get rid of them once and for all. It won't matter anymore, ever since the temple made a mistake and played against the royalty. The temple made a huge mistake by playing against the royalty. Should Ersia side with the temple, he plans on killing her too. How cruel! The Crown Prince begins to object. If people found out they were killing off ladies of the Oracle, they'd be outraged. But the Emperor could barely care. All they have to do is haul in any pink-haired princess and claim she's the Lady of the Oracle. As for Ersia, the Crown Prince tries to defend her, working on getting her back. But he can't win against the Emperor. In fact, it's too late, he says. As if on cue, a servant barges into the throne room with grave news. A fire broke out and a carriage was caught in the flames. Among its passengers was Princess Ersia Fezentera. At the scene, Ersia watches as assassins attack Asha and her brother, the flames engulfing them all. Ersia recalls the events leading up to the ambush. As they headed to the palace, their carriage had hit a stone, causing them to halt. Suddenly, a dagger was thrown in Asha's direction, and Asha immediately closes the carriage door, beckoning her not to come out. It's an ambush! As Asha begins to slay the assassins, the rest flee to safety. Ersia then comes out, reminding Asha not to kill them. Apparently, Ersia had anticipated all of this. Before their departure, Ersia had instructed her brother to come after her should she be late to the palace. She knows fully well that the Emperor would try to exterminate her, and should his assassins fail him, he'd send Pavlose after Ersia to get the job done. To catch Pavlose, Ersia needed to be the bait for the first round of assassins. You got this, Ersia! Upon the first ambush, Ersia realizes just how intent the Emperor is on trying to kill her. Asha and Ersia then bide their time in the forest, waiting for Pavlose to come. Finally, Pavlose arrives, bringing with him an entire troop of assassins. But unbeknownst to them, the knights had already come for Ersia. The battle is gruesome, but the knights end up capturing Pavlose and his assassins. As the knights tie them up, they soon begin to let down their guard. Little do they know that Pavlose has another trump card: bombs. He blows a bomb to set himself loose, and he begins throwing them at the knights too, stirring everyone into harm and commotion. Suddenly, Pavlose manages to catch sight of Ersia, and he throws a bomb straight in her direction. Ersia is unable to dodge, but unexpectedly, Azrael shields Ersia with his own body. Ersia's brother tries to save Ersia from the flames that engulf her, but his knights stop him. It's too dangerous, they say. Unable to do anything, her brother orders everyone to bring sand and water to put out the fire immediately. But suddenly, the Crown Prince arrives at the scene looking for Ersia. Her brother points toward the fire where Ersia was last seen, but he's infuriated by something. How could the Crown Prince arrive at the scene so quickly? It's almost as if he knew this would happen. He then accuses the Crown Prince of being incompetent for not being able to prevent a happening such as this. Deep within the forest fire, Azrael uses his holy power to protect himself and Ersia from the flames. He tells her that the royal family found out that she's a lady of the Oracle, and he was sure they'd do something. He just didn't expect them to be so extreme. The fire burns hotter, and Azrael's holy power can only go so far. They have to get out quickly. He urges Ersia to hang on tight so they can escape together. When she does, she instantly feels the injuries to his back, causing her to worry. Oh, flashback time. Ersia recalls a conversation she once had with Azrael. From the start, she had always been curious why he chose her as his bride, aside from the obvious beauty and brains, of course. To her astonishment, Azrael replied that she saved him once, and from then on, she became his ultimate goal. Back to the present, Azrael and Ersia managed to get out of the fire, but only barely. Everyone rushes to their side, but Ersia faints before they can help her. Ersia wakes up in her room, disoriented, and sees her brother sitting beside her. The first thing she does is look for Azriel, but her brother tells her that he hasn't woken up since the fire. With worried eyes, she darts out of her room, intent on finding Azriel. Ersia heads to Azriel's room and finds 2 priests guarding the door. She asks to stay by his side, and they grant her permission to enter. Just like the priest said, she finds Azriel with scars all over his body. The priests did all they could using their holy power, but to no avail. She sits beside him, crying as she remembers a memory she shared with him. As if sensing her presence, Azriel slowly wakes up, seeing Ersia in tears. She immediately tells him to tell her everything. Seeing her in a fit of tears, Azriel sits up, enveloping her in a tight hug. The two stay cuddled against each other, and when their eyes meet, they share a passionate kiss under the dim room lights. It's about time you guys kissed! After that, Azriel tells Ersia everything, starting from when they first met as children all the way to the present. When he became the Pope, he lied that the prophecy changed, but this was in the hopes of setting her free from the palace and becoming happy. He never thought it would hurt her in more ways than one. You thought wrong. He wanted to admit it sooner, but the thought that she'd hate him because of it was too much to bear. Sincerely, Azriel apologizes for everything he did, except for kissing her earlier. Ersia takes in all his revelations, and upon his last statement, she retorts that she sort of likes it. She then turns her attention to his condition, worried about his injuries. When she offers to call the priest, he stops her and holds her hand, asking her to stay with him. Ersia's brother, Sylvia, and Asha march straight into the dining hall where Ersia and Azriel are eating. They have been worried sick since she disappeared in the middle of the night. Their conversation is interrupted when Azriel invites them to join their meal, but their mood immediately changes as they stare daggers at him. All of them sit except for Asha, still doing his duty of guarding the princess. As they eat, a growing tension becomes obvious between Ersia's brother and Azriel. Ersia's brother refuses to forgive Azriel for everything he's done. Just because he saved her life, it won't absolve him of his other sins, like lying about the oracle and making Ersia's life difficult. Ersia appreciates her brother's concern, but given that they're in the temple, maybe he can tone it down a bit. She then realizes it's not just her brother glaring at Azriel, it's Asha and Sylvia too. The standoff continues, and Ersia grows more uncomfortable by the minute. She might even get indigestion because of them. A brother and his sister's lover? Yikes, it's always gonna be heated, Ersia, trust me. Suddenly, a knight barges into the dining hall and delivers news to Ersia's brother. Something has happened at the palace. At the palace, the crown prince sulks in his study, infuriated by not being able to save Ersia yet again. He suddenly begins to think that he could achieve more if he ascends the throne. The crown prince barges into the throne room, only to be met with a familiar face, the Duchess. What is she doing visiting the palace at such a time? This is getting interesting. The crown prince is surprised at the appearance of Duchess Igni Fazenter at the imperial palace. In fact, the Duchess's children, Ersia and Blondehair, are discussing it with Azriel. It seems the two are more worried that this has happened, more so because the Duchess has brought with her the royal knights of the Valencia kingdom. The siblings explain that their mother was raised in a foreign kingdom and had been doted on by their grandfather, so she knows little nor cares for consequences, so they fear what might happen. At this very moment, Duchess Igni addresses His Majesty himself, who questions why she brought foreign knights to his court. The Duchess reminds him that she was a Valencia before marriage. When her father learned that Igni's daughter was harmed, he made her bring the knights for protection. Though he doesn't like it, His Majesty assures Igni that they will do anything to investigate and bring the person responsible for hurting her daughter to justice. But shockingly, without a tinge of anger, Igni accuses His Majesty for this very crime. Wow, they weren't kidding when her kid said she isn't familiar with consequences. Meanwhile, the Fazenter siblings are in a carriage ride home when Blondehair notices Sia worrying. He reassures his sister that their mother will be fine, since she and His Majesty, the Emperor, used to be romantically involved. In fact, their mother rejected the Emperor's proposal. This gets Sia thinking of the Crown Prince too, and questions Blondehair whether she loves him. She finds she can't forgive Ernos, but feels at ease with Azriel. Blondehair's advice is for her to do what she wants. Sometime later, everyone is busy preparing for the founding festival. Sia gets presented with a dress for it, but finds it was tailored to match Azriel. She also has her dress she tailored last year, however. Meanwhile, it seems Duchess Igni has a lot to talk about with the Crown Prince. Finally, the day for the founding festival has arrived. Everyone's busy celebrating one of the grand events of the imperial family. Even the nobles, too. For the Fazenter Duchy, this is even more true. The Fazenter siblings discuss whether Sia needs to make an appearance, but Sia is set on going. She needs people to see she's fine, especially His Majesty. The topic then falls as to whether or not they'll bring an escort. For blonde hair, he will attend as a knight, so he doesn't need one. Sia initially says there's no need for one, since Azrael can't go with her. But Sylvia protests, since Sia promised she'll go with her instead, despite the imperial law against going with a partner of the same gender. Suddenly, a letter arrives. It seems Sia still wrote to her mother despite blonde hair's assurance earlier. Igni only writes a short reply, promising her daughter she'll take care of everything. Later that day, Sia finally makes an appearance at the ball. Wearing the dress matching the temple colors and Azrael, mind you. Her appearance with Sylvia, who many people thought had also died, did cause quite a stir, especially because of the aforementioned law. Sure enough, Sia and the Crown Prince cross paths. Sia maintains proper royal etiquette, but purposely denies granting Ernos his request to have her first dance. She walks away without another word, so the Crown Prince desperately asks for a moment with her for a conversation. The two ex-lovers walk out onto an empty balcony. Ernos has many questions, none of which Sia feels the inclination to answer properly or at all. Questions like if she's well, no thanks to him, or if she plans to marry Azrael. This is information Sia won't share, especially to an ex-fiancé. Now, Ernos starts getting desperate and asks for forgiveness and what he can do for it. Sia points out that His Majesty tried to have her killed and he did nothing. Ernos admits to being a coward. Truthfully, Sia waited for his apology, but now that it's here, Sia angrily points out that Ernos is unaware of what his father did to her and even to his own mother. With that, Sia walks away, even promising she doesn't plan to see him anymore till they both die. Curiously, a figure observes the conversation behind a tree. Now alone on the balcony, Ernos can't help but replay his conversation with Sia. That is, until he gets informed about something that makes him leave immediately. Meanwhile, Sia rejoins the ball just as Azrael makes his entrance, and it's his first appearance as the Pope, too. Naturally, his good looks make the single noble ladies clamor over who gets to approach him, but it's Sia who takes her first dance with him. Azrael notices something troubling Sia, but assures her it's all right. He already knows. His calm demeanor is perhaps why Sia feels so comfortable with him. While dancing, they share a cute conversation about each other's sleeping habits. Naturally, Sia dancing with Azrael on the first dance causes quite a stir, as this is typically reserved for lovers. This comes up when Sia and Sylvia talk with the other noble ladies their age. They ask if Sia will really marry Azrael. Thankfully, blonde hair's entrance attracts most of the attention momentarily, taking the heat off of Sia. He looks handsome too, so the ladies instead ask Sia what her brother's preferred type is. Sia mentions someone like their mother, who is bold and fiery. And boy, do these ladies get intimidated. Speaking of, the Duke and Duchess of Fazenter make their appearance too, which brings a smile to Sia's face. She approaches them, and for the first time in a long while, the mother and daughter share a warm hug. Blonde hair joins them as well, and the Fazenter family share a tender reunion at the ball. Curious about her reply, Sia asks her mother what she meant by taking care of things. Igni reveals that initially, she wanted revenge when she learned her daughter got hurt. However, a better revenge is letting the Emperor know that his child could be harmed just as hers was too. Coincidentally, the ball was unexpectedly halted, as the attendants gathered outside to see Ernos, bloodied and burnt, lying on the floor. Oh, I bet Sia regrets saying they'll meet as corpses now. The Emperor orders a massive search for his son, believing the corpse found wearing his clothes was not him. The search did not find any results, so the Emperor is made aware of the possibility that it is Ernos who was found. Still, who could harm him or have any reason to? Meanwhile, Sia is with her mother during the aftermath of the ball's events. All Sia can think about is the last conversation she had with Ernos, and whether or not the corpse found really belonged to Ernos. Igni asks her daughter to calm down and sit, so Sia turns her attention towards her. Now that the investigation has started, not one of the ball's attendants was given permission to go home. Surprisingly, Igni is calmer than most. Also, Igni's letter and her explanation raises some doubts for Sia. But surprisingly, Igni reveals she knows Sia wants to put the Emperor on trial. But that can only happen in quite rare circumstances, so... Coincidentally, the Emperor's men burst in through the door, declaring the arrest of Duchess Igni Fazenter as a suspect for the murder of the Crown Prince Ernos. The Valencia Knights guard her immediately, but Igni calmly asks for evidence. And so the evidence against her is laid out. Igni was the last person to be with Ernos due to a letter found in his desk asking for an audience and eyewitness accounts, and a matchbook found near the body bearing the Fazenter symbol. Surprisingly, Igni allows herself to be arrested. When Sia protests, she stops her daughter and whispers something in her ear instead. Igni leaves Sia with a smile as she gets taken away. Soon, the news of Duchess Fazenter's arrest regarding Ernos' murder became widespread, and also Sia holding a trial against the Emperor because of it. In prison, Igni stays steadfast in her belief in her daughter. Did Igni do all this so Sia can challenge the Emperor legally? The Emperor lounges quite happily with a drink in hand when thinking about the recent events. Now that Duchess Fazenter is in prison, it's all the more easier to control that family. He views Ernos' death as unfortunate, but he sees this as a rather unexpected gift. Of course, the Emperor gets informed that Sia has requested a trial against the royal family, and that they can't refuse her if they wish to maintain credibility among the people. The Emperor is cautious and orders that preparations are to be made for the trial. But he knows nothing but Ernos' sudden revival would overturn their advantage against the Fazenter family. More importantly, the Emperor is informed Captain Pavlos hasn't returned since his mission against the Fazenter, and due to what he knows, the Emperor orders that Pavlos be killed on sight. Meanwhile, the remaining Fazenters gather to discuss what had happened. Sia confirms through her father that Igni did indeed plan to take out Ernos so Sia could get a chance to take the Emperor to court. Her father does a good job of assuring her to push through, so Sia is determined to settle this in a trial. She does ask her brother for help, though, as it is revealed that they have kept Pavlos alive, but imprisoned. Sia manages to convince him to testify that the Emperor is responsible for the Empress's death by stating something that, for now, stays unrevealed. Infiltrating Pavlos as a witness proves difficult, however, when guards are placed everywhere around the palace. A sudden commotion alerts them to Sia and her group's position, but just in time, Azrael arrives to save her. With no moment to lose, Azrael promises to cause a distraction so Sia and the others could sneak past the guards. Azrael does a pretty convincing job of diverting the guards' attention, and as the Pope, they didn't aggressively press him for leaving his quarters. Because of Azrael, Sia and the others make it to the palace safely. While inside, Azrael asks who Pavlos is, and Sia reveals he's an important witness. As for the trial, Azrael knows it's something Sia wants and needs to win, but he reminds her he can only be fair as the Pope and acting judge. Sia wouldn't have it any other way, as it's apparent she's confident she won't lose. As Sia departs for the trial, Azrael gets a solemn look on his face, saying to himself he can see the end. Meanwhile, there's a murmur at the trial because Sia is late. This only makes the Emperor more smug and confident. But after Sia arrives, she proclaims that it's a trial for Ernos' murder. But there's something that needs to be revealed first. Approved by Azrael through God due to the honesty of her words, Sia reveals Pavlos as her witness. Pavlos explains that he was an aide to the Emperor, but his actual job was to acquire a narcotic called Flore, which was used by the Emperor to slowly poison the late Empress. Naturally, the Emperor is frantically calling for Azrael to revert the matter to Ernos' murder. But the catch? Sia reveals Ernos was silenced by the Emperor because he was starting to figure out his mother's demise. What's even more crazy is that when the courtroom doors open once more as a dark-haired man walks through, Sia thinks back to the night her mother was arrested. Igni had revealed to her that Ernos didn't die at all. A few days ago, during the fateful meeting of Ernos and Duchess Igni, he proclaimed he loved Sia. However, Igni brought up Ernos' mother, and right then and there revealed evidence that his father had acquired and administered a drug to poison the late Empress. Of course, Ernos didn't believe it at first, but Igni reveals that Sia got the evidence while investigating, and that the attempt on her life was because she dug too close to the truth. The perpetrator for both those crimes is none other than the Emperor. If Ernos truly loves Sia, he has to show it through actions. And so, now at the trial, Ernos is revealed to be alive, and is sharing information pinning his father for the crime of murdering his wife. Ernos reveals to the court that while he was investigating the circumstances of his mother's death, he encountered Pavlos, and knowing Ernos will piece it all together, the Emperor had ordered his son to be killed. An explosion of outrage is the only thing the Emperor could do. What's more, Azrael formally absolves Duchess Igni of the supposed crime of murdering Ernos, since he is alive and is able to say she wasn't the one to do it. But based on the evidence presented by Sia and Ernos, a new case opens, with the Emperor being the suspect for the late Empress's death. It's opened by none other than Ernos. As for the Emperor's tantrum, Azrael warns him not to supersede him, the judge's authority in determining the truth. He had him taken away, and while the trial is ongoing, the Emperor is temporarily stripped of his title and authority. Afterwards, the Emperor couldn't help but be angry at how the trial turned out, and neither he nor his advisor could think of an option other than to plead guilty and hope for a lighter sentence. Suddenly, Ernos enters the room to see his father. Meanwhile, the Fazenters are finally reunited with Igni out of prison. Sia can't help but say her mother's plan was risky. However, the question of whether Ernos is trustworthy or not is still being asked, as they know he was a puppet played perfectly by his father. Speaking of, Ernos reminds his father that this trial is something he can't beat, and so urges him to go and leave. Apparently, it's his last mercy to him as a son. Oh, Ernos, don't do that! Let him go on trial and stand for his crimes! Sure enough, the Fazenters get the news that the Emperor somehow escaped. An eyewitness has stated that he was spotted leaving with the Crown Prince heading east. They know there is a royal villa in that direction, so the Fazenters know where they will go. Naturally, Sia is again overthinking how she let her guard down. But as she did before, Igni reminds her daughter to stay calm. This makes Sia think this is part of her mother's plan too, but Igni admits that it isn't. Despite her preparations, one can never truly account for human emotions. Regardless, they know where the escaped Emperor and Ernos are headed, so they can just ask Ernos. The Fazenters ride quickly to the royal villa. Azrael had joined them as well when he learned of what happened. When Sia is tormented trying to understand Ernos' actions since all he wants was to avenge his mother, Azrael gives another perspective. Perhaps he feels the Emperor is still needed. Not long after, they finally arrived at the royal villa, but the gates are heavily guarded. Entry won't be easy. Inside, Ernos pours a glass of wine for himself and for his father, who continually reprimands him for following the Fazenters. Ernos calmly states he shouldn't provoke him. The entire reason Ernos did this was to ask his father why he killed his mother, but the Emperor gives him a messed up answer. Why wouldn't he? He took her life on a whim. Ernos calmly takes the glasses, hands one to his father, and sips on the other one. He proclaims his father has managed to take the two people in his life that he loved. An overconfident emperor tells him he can give Ernos a new wife, even a new mother. Ernos stays quiet, watching his father drink the wine. Meanwhile, Sia's brother and Azrael handle the attackers to allow Sia and Igni to enter the villa. Inside, the emperor suddenly chokes and spits blood. Ernos has poisoned the wine. He mocks his father's overconfidence, while the Emperor threatens he can't inherit the throne without him. Ernos' expression is solemn. He didn't expect to inherit the throne. When Sia and Igni enter the room Ernos and the Emperor were in, a shocking sight lay before them. What happened to Ernos? Moments before Sia and Igni entered the room, the Emperor figured out he was poisoned by Ernos. Ernos himself spit out the wine he pretended to drink earlier. The same scene as before plays out, as the Emperor eventually crawls under the coffee table and dies in disgrace. This is the scene that Sia and Igni saw. Sia instinctively reaches out to Ernos, but Igni has gone to comfort the boy. Soon, Azrael and Sia's brother enter the room, and despite no one willing to do so, Azrael approaches the late Emperor's corpse and closes his eyes. He did not know any prayers for a disgraced person who died an equally gruesome death, so instead, he prayed for Ernos for the dead's sake. Poor Ernos started crying. It's a guilt he'll carry for the rest of his life. Soon afterwards, the matter of the Emperor's death was kept under wraps through Azrael's efforts. The investigation was hindered, but the inheritance, not so much. Everyone assumes Ernos will ascend the throne. Regarding that, Sia meets with him as a representative of her family. She presents the information given by the late Empress to be used for the late Emperor's trial, saying Ernos can do what he wished with it. She does also promise to keep the truth about how the Emperor perished, but not if Ernos stepped out of line. Ernos thanks her, which surprised Sia. Actually, Ernos' plan is to hand over the throne to the second prince, Alfredo, once the founding festival concludes. He'll need the second nobility in rebuilding it first, but he declares the tradition of the throne passing through murder ends with him. Sia contemplates what Ernos said later on, knowing he was serious. Suddenly, Sia gets a letter from a supposed sky blue-haired man, asking her company for a walk. It's revealed to be Azrael, who surprisingly has sky blue hair now. Apparently, Azrael has prepared a method to change their hair color, and he changed Sia's to a long blonde-colored style, reminiscent of the common Fazenter physical attributes. They joke around for a bit, noting if they would have met if Sia looked the same with her family. Azrael says they will, and he still would have fallen in love, because it's not Sia's hair that made him fall for her. Anyway, with their disguises, Azrael suggests they go out to the town to take part and experience the festival. Sia is hesitant at first, but eventually agrees. At first, it seems Azrael's disguises are working, but really, they're not. Unfortunately, everyone recognizes the Pope and Lady Fazenter. They just keep their distance and respect them. Azrael's oblivious to this, so Sia plays along with him despite noticing it immediately. And so, the two enjoy the festival together, even holding hands as they, for once, experience the peace after a rather chaotic chain of events. Somehow, the two ended up watching a puppet show where a man and a woman lived their happy ever after some drama. The show garnered different opinions from the crowd, particularly about how the man was greedy and went about showing his love the wrong way. This hits Azrael and made him think back to when he and Sia were kids, and he asked what she would do if there's another way she wouldn't become a crown princess. Sia always said she was fine, but she was crying afterwards. Yes, it seems that Azrael was greedy with her. He knew she was the one when he first saw her. Wait, the one for what? Sia, sensing Azrael went silent, expressed her opinion about the play. Love isn't always pure. Sometimes it starts as greed and then turns to love. It's removing all the impurities that makes it love. Her words bolster Azrael's mood and make his determination set. As they walk away from the show, Azrael expresses his intention to announce Sia as the child of a prophecy. What prophecy are you talking about? If Azrael plans to announce her as the genuine daughter of prophecy, Sia knows he'll intentionally discredit the temple for already assigning it, and they'll certainly open to public outrage. The Emperor took the lives of his subjects to eliminate the prophesied blessed one. Why is Azrael taking on this burden all alone? Is it because of Sia? If so, she asks him to stop. But really, Azrael says he's doing it for him too. Days pass and the entire population is in an uproar about the announcement of the Blessed One, despite the one the temple introduced. Azrael is at Rutella's house, where he's treating a bedridden young child. Amidst the protests, Rutella knows she isn't welcome anymore as the once revered child of prophecy, now that the real one has been revealed. Suddenly, a maid appears before Azrael and Rutella, who reveals that Sia has sent the maid to help her pack her things and travel away from this place with comfort and safety. Sia even granted the maid some jewels and helped her brother. Anyway, this seems to have brought a smile on Azrael's face. However, the public's strong negative opinion of the church suddenly backtracking on the Blessed One's announcement still hasn't lessened. Everyone in the temple is trying their best to handle the chaos. The people rioting do notice the new carriage of the Blessed One carries the Fazenter insignia. Apparently, Sia has traveled to the temple just to see Azrael. Unfortunately for her, it always seems like Azrael is too busy to accept guests. It's either he's away, visiting an orphanage, or the like. This is the case for so long that it's actually been 2 weeks since they last saw each other that Sia finally catches a moment with Azrael. However, Azrael is fast asleep, still seated at his work desk. In his half-asleep state, he admits to working hard because he likes Sia, to none other than Sia herself. So when the morning comes and Azrael has woken up, Sia says they need to talk about something. Their wedding. Sia proposes that she and Azrael should marry. Naturally, Azrael could only react in a surprised way, asking if he was dreaming. He had just woken up after all. But Sia assures him she's serious. Sia even calmly suggests that they plan their wedding date immediately to avoid the hassle during recent events. But now it's Azrael's turn to be serious. Azrael doesn't comment on the getting married thing further, but instead asks Sia for a little bit of time, as he wants to take her somewhere. Soon, the two are enjoying the beautiful scenery of green grass and fresh, brightly colored flowers. Sia points out that it's winter, but this area still feels like spring. Apparently, this is the mountain every pope inherits when they take the position. Azrael's first thought upon seeing it was how beautiful it looked, and how he would like him and Sia to go there together one day. So now, Azrael kneels and pulls out a ring box. He admits he wouldn't be better than his old self if he accepts marrying Sia now, when everything's still a mess. Instead, he asks Sia if she can wait 3 months. In 3 months, Azrael promises to be a better man and will marry Sia then. Of course, Sia accepts, so Azrael slips on her finger a promise ring. Still, the two banter about Sia proposing first, when actually, Azrael proposed in his sleep earlier. When the two return from the mountain, they each return to their respective duties. The Duke and Duchess Fazenter, having no more reason to stay at the capital, made preparations to go home, although their children would stay to help with the aftermath of the founding festival. Speaking of, Alfredo, the second prince, inherited the throne afterwards, and he proved to be a capable leader despite his age, because of his experiences from the war. Azrael also had been hard at work to restore the temple's reputation by helping the townsfolk. And in 3 months, the temple's reputation became favorable in the eyes of many. As for Sia, she often finds herself missing Azrael, but coincidentally, he always shows up when she needs him the most. Sometimes they'll have tea, other times they'll work on their tasks together. That bond only strengthened as after 3 months, amongst their friends and family, Azrael and Sia made good on their promise and sealed their fate as husband and wife in holy matrimony. A kiss is shared by the two, Sia and Azrael, as their ceremony concludes. It's a love that's approved by and causes delight for everyone. Even Air knows who's in attendance. This ends the main story, but we are not finished with our adventure just yet. Celebrations are in order for the newlyweds. The Duke and Duchess Fazenter can't help but praise how beautiful Sia is as she dances with Azrael. Soon after, it's Sia's brother who takes his turn dancing with her. True enough, he still doesn't like the idea of sending her off to someone, but when he asks if she's happy, Sia says yes with no hesitation. Truly, Sia is immensely happy. Suddenly, a loud announcement is made. His Majesty has arrived. Murmurs arose from the crowd, seeing as the temple and the royal family seem to be in a disagreement amidst the recent events. But when Emperor Alfredo arrives, he still calls Sia his sister and congratulates the newlyweds. He even says it's okay to not be so formal around him. Alfredo asks Sia for a dance, which she gladly accepts. While this is happening, Azrael is by himself in a corner. Duke and Duchess Fazenter approach him, and Igni, most especially, is having fun teasing Azrael about how beautiful and captivating her daughter is. This only makes Azrael smile and agree. Afterwards, Azrael approaches Sia and wins another dance with her by making up some temple rules that allow him to do so. But most importantly, he reminds Sia of their wedding night, where upon laying eyes on Sia for the first time as a married couple alone in their bedroom, Azrael sweeps and carries Sia off her feet. Azrael proceeds to carry Sia to bed, where they drink wine that was a gift from Duchess Igni. It's because she teased Azrael earlier and thought Sia might like the wine as well. Sia is exceptionally beautiful that night, and she reveals that her maids had insisted she prepared a lot for this night. Speaking of, Sia bluntly asks if Azrael is capable of carrying out other husbandly duties that priests are known to not have the privilege of. Despite being so shy about it, Azrael says he can. And it seems as though that shyness is only momentary as he caresses his wife, leading the two to spend the night together in passion and in love. The following morning, Sia wakes up to find Azrael had also already woken up. Azrael doesn't miss the chance to express his love to Sia, making her think how he's the exact opposite of the values she thought were correct as a child. Sia had, in a sense, used a mask to hide her emotions. But with Azrael, who makes her happy and tells her he loves her, she wants to be honest too. With that, Sia returns Azrael's affection. Unfortunately, this leads Azrael to again try to not get Sia out of bed, while Sia says they need to get breakfast first. Even Sia's aching back possibly because of Azrael, didn't stop him from spending time with his wife in bed. What's tragic is poor Petro, who just turned into a priest and is assigned to aid the Pope, is waiting just outside the newlyweds' door to inform them their breakfast is ready. That very morning, the Fazenter family is waiting for Sia and Azrael so they can have breakfast together. Unfortunately, the newlyweds are inexplicably late. We all know why, don't we? Anyway, it seems that there are still some assassins that infiltrated Sia's wedding, and they're being held by Rias, Sia's brother. It seems that they're sent by the dwindling faction that supported the old emperor. But when the news spreads that the current emperor has a good relationship with Sia, that faction should disappear soon enough. As for the assassins, Igni asks her son to dispose of them outright. After some time, Sia and Azrael do make their way to the dining table. And though they've been waiting a lot, Igni lies to them that they've just arrived. During their meal, Sia is surprised that Azrael and Igni were having a friendly conversation. That's because it's Sia's first time seeing her mother converse warmly with someone other than family. Azrael then asks the Duke and Duchess if they're busy, as he'd like to invite them to come along to his and Sia's trip to the resort. Azrael will be taking a leave from his work for this. Unfortunately, the two are busy. Rias as well too, so he can't accompany them either. However, Sia comments that Sylvia has been accepted for a scholarship at the university and had wanted to let Sylvia know. Rias offers to do so, much to Sia's delight. However, her and Azrael's whispering might indicate they're plotting something for Rias and Sylvia. Rias makes good on his promise and visits Sylvia at the university. She's confused as to why that is, though. Rias reveals, on behalf of Sia, that Sylvia has gotten the scholarship, but Sylvia has gotten a letter about that too. So it seems Sia has sent her brother an excuse just so he and Sylvia could see each other. Anyway, Rias is proud of Sylvia's decision to enroll at the university for herself. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people eavesdropping on them, so Sylvia asks Rias to not visit her so openly to prevent rumors from spreading. Rias doesn't care about that, but he makes a mistake of referring to Sylvia like a little sister, which makes her cry unintentionally. As she turns to leave, Rias reaches out and holds her hand. Perhaps a hint of romance in the air. Poor Petro has not been having any luck at his new position as the Pope's orderly, because he can't get Azrael to do any temple activities. He's scared that the other priests might look at him differently if he fails again. So this morning, he's determined. Petro approaches Azrael and Sia's bedroom, and when he was given permission to enter, he finds that the couple can't get their hands off each other again. Well, to be more accurate, it's Azrael that can't keep his hands away from Sia. Petro is surprised that Azrael looks so different when he's away from Sia. In fact, his bubbly personality is non-existent when Azrael's talking to him about work. But really, Petro is there to deliver Sia a letter. Sia laughs upon reading it, and she reveals that it's from Sylvia. Apparently, after that fateful first visit, Rias has been visiting her at the university every day. What's more peculiar is that Rias always says that the tea is good on his visits to Sylvia. He leaves and visits again the following day. It seems that Sia and Azrael's plan is going smoothly. Rias is like that because it's like him to observe thoroughly. Meanwhile, Petro hasn't left yet, so Azrael asks him what else he might be there for. Petro takes this opportunity to tell Azrael the temple schedule, but the Pope cancels them all outright. It's only because of Sia's genuine interest for the activities that Petro is able to tell Azrael about them. And finally, the Pope attends his temple activities because of Sia. In one of them, the couple are clearly enjoying helping the marginalized poor. It's also there that Azrael discovers that Sia has been going above and beyond in providing the budget to help those in poverty. He realizes that even by such a simple act like their wedding, Sia has gone to a lot of effort to help mend the Empire's peace back together again. And so, while his wife is hard at work drying laundry for the family they're helping, Azrael kisses her tenderly. Unfortunately, an arrow glints in the sunlight, and it's already loaded on a bow held by mysterious men. Just as the assassins make their presence known, thankfully enough, the guards assigned to protect Sia and Azrael do their jobs well. The attackers are successfully apprehended. Despite being somewhat far away, Sia faintly hears the commotion. Azrael tries convincing her that there's nothing to it, but Sia knows there is. And so, Azrael is forced to admit that there were numerous assassins on their wedding day, sent by those loyal to the old emperor. Most of these nobles were apprehended, but one is still at large. So that's why Azrael has been extra protective of Sia lately. Rather than be deterred, Sia instead gets more determined to deal with the problem herself. Her calm but evil smile reminds Azrael strongly of her mother, Duchess Igni. Meanwhile, Count Sidonia is one of many that has received a letter of invitation from Lady Sia, or more accurately, the Saintess. The Count knows if it's made clear she and the Emperor are on good terms, the status and power gained from his allegiance to the old Emperor would vanish. And so Count Sidonia goes to see Ernos, who had been living in seclusion at the palace ever since his abdication. Count Sidonia entices Ernos to a rebellion. Ernos initially toys with the Count's expectations, but ultimately reveals he would never do such a thing. Count Sidonia has read Ernos wrong. Ernos warns Count Sidonia also that the Fazenter will know of his actions, sending assassins against Sia, and will take their revenge accordingly. He should write out a will. Ernos motions for the Count to leave, while remarking himself that he too should move, as it would seem Count Sidonia will attract others who will propose the same offer. Funny enough, Ernos advises Count Sidonia that assassins don't work, based on personal experience. But as the Count leaves, Ernos' gaze follows the man. Suddenly, Sia gets news from Azrael about Count Sidonia's disappearance from the meeting. It seems he was last seen entering the palace alive, then his lifeless body was found. Who could have taken him out? The scene cuts to Ernos riding in a carriage while staring at the night sky. A peculiar scene emerges wherein Countess Igni is lying in a field of grass with her daughter Sia. She observes a pair of meteors in the night sky before waking up. It seems that Igni had a dream, and she is already interpreting it in some sort of way. Meanwhile, Sia is awoken by a maid who brought her breakfast. It seems that Azrael has work that required his early presence, so that's why he's not there. Curiously, Sia has not taken a liking to eggs, saying they were rotten even when they're not. Anyway, the maid also informs her that her mother will be visiting later. Duchess Igni makes good on her appointment, and Azrael also said he had some time off work, so he also arrived to visit Sia a little bit. Actually, Azrael has escaped work and left poor Petro alone again. Sia pleads with Azrael to return to work, but it seems Azrael and Igni are close enough that they gang up on her about letting him stay. Sia won't be deterred, however, and kicks Azrael out the door. As for Duchess Igni, she asks Sia out for a walk. They reminisce about Sia being married for 3 months, and all the good that's come of it. But really, all Igni wants to talk about is if Sia has decided to have kids. It seems Duchess Igni wants to have grandchildren. She also reveals her dreams to Sia, and Igni interprets the dreams as Sia having twins. But anyway, that night, as Azrael is helping Sia dry her hair, Sia brings up the conversation about having kids, as they haven't really talked about that ever since they got married. Azrael is hoping for 2 kids in that respect. Sia is, admittedly, a little bit scared. It's all because she doesn't want her child to experience what she did as a child, separated from her loved ones at such an early age. Azrael does a good job of comforting Sia, promising that their family would never be like that. They'll always be there for them. He tenderly hugs Sia, and an intimate, loving moment is shared by the couple. However, a nauseous, dizzy feeling overwhelms Sia. She collapses, and something unexpected happens next. Oh, could it be? The following morning, when the doctor examines Sia, she and Azrael got the most wonderful news that made the couple hug each other tenderly. Sia is pregnant! This joyous news did not stay hidden for long, as the Duke and Duchess Fazenter arrived as soon as they could when they heard that Sia was pregnant. Igni gives her daughter such a warm hug, so much so that her husband had to remind her not to startle the baby in Sia. As for her health, Sia confidently says she's fine, but actually, Azrael has been keeping tabs on her actual condition so that he could relay them properly. He also hasn't left since that morning by Sia's side. What's more, Igni promises Sia that she doesn't need to worry anymore, because she'll be staying with her and helping her during her pregnancy. Sia isn't welcome to the idea of inconveniencing her mother, but again, Azrael and Igni's surprising but welcome closeness wins the day, as Azrael promises Igni can stay, and he even shows her to her room. This makes Sia remark that it's Azrael and her mother that actually sound like a couple right now. Afterwards, Rias and Sylvia also arrive to visit the now bedridden Sia. Curiously, the two acted exactly like the Duke and Duchess Fazenter earlier. But this time, it's Rias who hugged his sister immensely, and Sylvia reminded him not to disturb the baby. All the worrying aside, Rias is truly happy that he'll be an uncle now. But when he and Sylvia were talking back and forth, Sia notices something adorable about the two of them. And so, Sia bluntly asks when Rias and Sylvia started dating. The redness of the new couple's faces make it very evident that they're in a romantic relationship. It seems that during one of Rias's visits to Sylvia at the university, Sylvia finally remarked on his preference for tea. Rias said, as casual as can be, that it's actually Sylvia that he liked. A flustered Sylvia said she doesn't know Rias well, so he asked her out on a date the following day. So begins their relationship. But Sia wonders how her brother, who did nothing more but drink tea at the university, finally worked up the courage to ask Sylvia out. A shy Rias admits that Azrael had helped him a lot, with dating advice and such. How come Azrael has all this time on his hands? Anyway, when Rias and Sylvia leave, Sia finally has time to relax. It's even more relaxing when Azrael arrives and brings her some food. They spend all day in bed together, and somewhere along that time, Azrael remarks about his disbelief that he actually ended up with Sia and that she loves him back. Well, Sia jokingly teases Azrael that it's because he tried to kidnap her. But really, Sia is so glad she met Azrael, and they again embrace each other with love. Curiously, a tiny movement from Sia's belly tells them their baby wants to join in too. A lot of time has passed since then. We next see Sia comforting her son, an energetic pink-haired boy who scraped his knee running in a beautiful field with grass and flowers. At the same time, Azrael approaches them with their baby girl in his hands. The series ends with Sia and Azrael having a family picnic with their children. A loving family that has kept their promise of being there for their kids. This chapter is a repeat of the previous one, so that means the price of breaking up has finally concluded. It's been a rough ride, hasn't it? From heartbreaks, conspiracies, and finally love to newfound beginnings, Sia's journey of gaining her loved ones makes us want to hug ours tightly even more.